Prep IAS. Welcome to the 24th module. Hello, a very warm good morning to all of you, and welcome to Byju's Exam Prep IAS. Welcome to the 24th module and the 24th session for the portion of geography, where today we shall be summing up the portion of Indian geography, and we shall also be harping upon the economic and the human aspect of geography in greater detail. Now, till yesterday, we have had a significant amount of discussion about the portion of agriculture, where we developed our concepts with regards to what do we understand by the various different cropping seasons, what are the different cropping patterns, the different types of agricultural practices that are to be observed and followed across the globe. And also, we looked at the nuances, for example, what are the basis on which we call green revolution a success, and also the learnings that we get from the limitations as exposed by the portion of green revolution. Okay, right. So I hope everybody is up and fine and running for the today's morning session. I hope there is not much of an issue out there. Okay, I understand that waking up early in the morning is not something which everybody cherishes in their life, but then I hope that what we cover in this particular module, the details and the real life examples that we will see in this today's particular module, I hope that offsets and that counters many of those kind of anxious moments that you would have got. Okay, so we start with the portion of organic farming. Till now, in the portion of agriculture, any issues or doubts that was prevalent? Yesterday's recorded session is not available. Okay, we'll take a look into that. Don't worry. We'll take a look into it. That there must be a technical issue out there. So we'll get it resolved as soon as possible. Okay, don't worry about it. So now we come to the portion of it is available, isn't it? Yeah. So see, many of them are saying that it is available and they have seen the video as well. So please kindly try it again. Okay. So in that case, I'm sure it's not an issue from our end that few of them are able to see the video, few of them are not. Okay. Vivek, yesterday also I answered this question of yours that how green revolution impacted women. So when we talk about green revolution, it has had multiple different phases of impact. The most apparent one was a kind of an economic prosperity which was brought about in these areas, and that brought about a better living standards, first of all. Secondly, when we talk about green revolution, that paid significant attention to farming in those fertile areas. Intensive agriculture and intensive method of cultivation was something which was promoted, due to which you had a greater female labor force participation in many of these areas. But also, yesterday also I told you about it, that in many of these regions, with the increased prosperity, came about a in a way curtailment of women participation in the farmlands, and thereby in many of the areas it also promulgated a significantly more stringent form of patriarchal setup as well. So there are both pros and cons in terms of the impact. Okay. Yes, Basu, please remind me at the end and I will provide you with the revision strategy. Okay, how to revise, that is something we'll take a look into. When reading Green Revolution, came across an RBI report on the requirement of the second Green Revolution. And that is where BGREI, that is bringing Green Revolution to Eastern India, comes into place. Okay. Green Revolution did not reach South India. So how was the agriculture produce? So agricultural produce would continue in all the various parts of the country. Green revolution is where you had a significant excessive amount of stress laid on the productivity of the food grains. Okay. Slowly and steadily, the rest of the country started adopting those, but then there was a lack of significant institutional support in terms of infrastructure. This is, in fact, one of the reasons why the southern states, they continued to produce millets. Earlier, even the northwestern region, they would produce millets in significant proportion. But with the onset of Green Revolution, the production of millet stopped, and the millet production continued in the central and southern part of the country because they were in a way untouched by the methodologies of Green Revolution for a longer period of time. Only after some period of time you have the practices which get known to other people as well, that okay, they are applying fertilizers, so let us also apply fertilizers. That is when slowly and steadily people did pick up those ideas, but then it was not something which was so very prominent. Okay. Now, but Karnataka, Telangana, Andhra using more electricity. But Karnataka, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, even for that matter, some parts of Tamil Nadu. Now, many parts of Tamil Nadu had the development and construction of canal system for some time across the river Kaveri, but irrigation was always a short supply. Irrigation is a limiting factor. And what Green Revolution did was that it augmented the availability of water with the help of irrigation facilities, canal construction, and so on. That is why in the region of North Karnataka, in the region of Andhra Pradesh for a substantial amount, even in Telangana, eastern part of Maharashtra, that is the Vidarbha region, you would find great amount of crop failure events happening, a recurrent amount of crop failures, right? So that is where you will find a kind of a variation in terms of the kind of primary occupation that people follow. And also to add on to the fact that in the peninsular part of the country, agriculture has not always been a predominant factor, that 60% of your population, 70% of your population is indulged only in agriculture. You always had the resources also where a lot of people would find a meaningful employment. Okay, is that understood? uh, but in Haryana also bajra is being harvested right behind my house. So that is in the portion of Rajasthan, in the southern portion of Haryana. So there bajra has been grown traditionally, and that is the kind of crop which is suited for that area. But nowadays again it is being picked up because of the increased difficulty which is being observed for growth of rice, because these are drier regions. So but still you don't have an excessive production or a large scale production of bajra or other forms of millets from the region of Haryana and Punjab as it should have been. Compared to what could have been, there is a far lesser production of that. There is still a production, as I told you yesterday, there is production of cotton also from the region of Punjab, but that is in very small area, right? It is not in a large scale area. Okay. uh, can we say that how we practice rice cultivation, it releases methane and more okay, so the flood irrigation of the method of rice cultivation, yes, that will release significant amount of more methane. Yes, Shargun, we will discuss the PYQs today. We'll try to discuss it today itself. Okay. Now here we come to the portion of organic farming. Now what do we understand by organic farming? So organic farming, it is different from the primitive method of agriculture that you have studied. Organic farming does not mean lack of technology thereafter. Organic farming refers to growing of crops, augmenting of soil fertility, and also ensuring that the crops, they do not lose their productivity purely by organic methodologies, not by any chemical supplements or chemical inputs. As simple as that. Where you grow crops, you ensure the retention of soil fertility by crop rotation, by intercropping, and those methodologies, and you apply on field solutions and remedies such as availability of manures, for example. Now, all of that is done in order to ensure no chemical inputs are required for the growth of the crop. So, that is organic farming. So, as per FAO, that is Food and Agriculture Organization. Now, this is the definition which might confuse you. So, that is why I have told you before itself what is organic farming. A very simple method of agriculture carried out purely by natural methodologies. No artificial or chemical inputs are required. And that also enhances the agroclimatic ecology of the soil in itself, where all the biotic and abiotic factors of the soil, they are enhanced to such an extent that even when you talk about earthworms, when you talk about the various microbes, they continue to function with utmost efficiency. So organic agriculture is a unique production management system which promotes and enhances agro ecosystem health, including biodiversity, biological cycles, and soil biological activity. And this is accomplished by using on farm agronomic, biological, and mechanical methods in the exclusion of all synthetic off farm inputs. Okay, now there are various different ways to achieve that, but the purpose is the same. Now, as I told you, that how you grow crops organically, that can be different from one region to another. How you recharge the soil fertility, that will vary from one region to another. But the purpose is always the same: protecting the long term fertility of the soil by maintaining organic matter levels, encouraging soil biological activity, and careful mechanical intervention. You see, when you start applying excessive amount of fertilizers in any portion of the soil, immediately it damages the soil fertility by killing all the microbes, killing all the important worms which are there. When we talk about earthworms, for example, earthworms are also considered to be a farmer's good friend. Why? Because earthworms, they help improve the texture of the soil, because their detritus or their excretion, that reduces the size of the particles. And also at the same time, if let's suppose anywhere you have the kind of earthworm which, let's suppose, which moves like this, okay, within the soil it moves like this. Now, as the earthworm ends up moving and forming its own pathway, that pathway is also a pathway for the intrusion of oxygen and other air particles into the soil. So that also enriches the air enhancement and the air retention within the soil structure. So that is also beneficial. So that is how overall you will find that the long term fertility of the soil will be promoted by maintaining and improving the organic matter levels. Now, providing crop nutrient, because remember, organic matter, that is humus, that is one of the very important factors in terms of determining the soil fertility. That is why, rather than synthetic chemical fertilizers, in the case of organic farming, you will find people use compost and manures, which are decomposed organic matter. Now, that compost or manure, you would also have seen, it is a kind of a dark brown substance like soil, and you apply it, and that improves the texture of the soil. It improves the greater amount of retention of particles and air and nutrients by the soil as well. So, here, rather than applying your urea, phosphate, potash, etc., you use the relevance of, for example, the manures that you produce in a very organic manner. Providing crop nutrients indirectly using relatively insoluble nutrient sources which are made available to the plant by the action of soil microorganisms. This is by use of manures. By use of manures. You said earthworms increase particle size. No, my dear friend. I did not mention here increase the particle size. They improve the texture. In the sense, improve the texture means, which is the better texture, where you have the finest of the particles. So the earthworms, as they eat their way through, as they move through, their detritus, their excretion, that is always finer in terms of the particle of the size soil itself. So as they continue to move through the soil over a period of time, the particle size reduces, the texture is improved, when we say texture is improved, it becomes finer. Okay, I hope that is understood. Now, we include cow dung. Yes, cow dung is an important part of making up these manures. You also have a lot of biomass and kitchen waste which is also used, right? So all of that, you have dried leaves, twigs, etc. All of that is put together, covered with soil, so that decomposition is carried out. And after the decomposition is carried out, that is when you extract those manures. As long as the decomposition process is carried out, if you venture anywhere close to that area where the decomposition process is going on, not only will you get that very unique foul stench of it, but you will also observe a lot of heat being released, and that is the process of decomposition for you. Okay, now, nitrogen self-sufficiency is done not by the provision of urea, but by ensuring crop rotation and intercropping, where you grow the specific kind of crop, such as legumes, and you go for the biological nitrogen fixation in order to ensure there is an increased nitrogen availability. So you don't have to apply urea. The artificial method of augmenting fertility is not done. Now, there are various different ways in which the organic farming can be attained. There are many of the traditional methodologies as well in various different small regions of how that can be attained. One of the methodologies of organic farming is ZBNF, zero budget natural farming. Before we start talking about it, and before I get bombarded with questions that what is the difference between organic farming and ZBNF, let me make it very clear that it is a type of organic farming. Type of organic farming. Okay. It is not different from organic farming. It is just a type how to carry out organic farming. Now, what is this concept of ZBNF? Zero budget natural farming. Natural farming refers to carrying out agriculture in a very natural manner without any artificial fertilizers, artificial inputs being provided to carry out the farming in a natural process. Zero budget means your input cost is supposed to be zero. So this refers to a kind of an organic farming where input cost is so that is supposed to increase the farm income. Why? Because when we talk about farm income, that is what? That is the selling price minus input cost. Okay, what is the cost incurred by the farmers? Now, what is happening for some time now is that because of increased amount of cost incurred to provide irrigation by the methodologies of, let's say, a tube well, boring, etc., you will find that the farm cost is increasing, the input cost is increasing. The fertilizers that you have to buy from the market, the pesticides that you have to buy from the market. So that increases the farm input. So if the farm input cost increases, the farm income overall will keep on reducing. That is what we are experiencing. In this method of organic farming, it is pertained to have a kind of a zero input cost. While that is practically feasible or not is a different matter altogether, but that is supposed to be the concept of it, that if you make the input cost zero, obviously the farm income will be very high. But then it is a farming practice that believes in natural growth of crops without adding any fertilizers and pesticides or any foreign elements. Now, this simply focuses upon applying the locally available inputs out there for increasing and augmenting the fertility of the soil and improving the agricultural mechanism. This ZBNF has got four important stages associated with it. Okay, so ZBNF has got 4 important stages. What are those? Those are basically Bijamrut. In fact, initially it is Jivamrut, Bijamrut, then you also have mulching and Vafasa. Okay, now what are these? Jivamrut. What is basically the term stands for increasing the biological activity in the soil before you plant the crops. You want the soil to be organically active so that there's a greater rate of germination in the crop seeds as well. So this is done before sowing of the seed to increase the biological activity in the soil. To increase biological activity in soil. Sneha, my dear friend, we have had multiple announcements that the class will begin from 6:30. So I think everybody was aware about the timing. No issues about the timing. We have had multiple announcements that the class is going to begin from 6:30. Okay. So yes. So then when we talk about after that Bijamrut. So once you have prepared the soil by the process of Jivamrut, so how do you attain that Jivamrut? How do you ensure that there is increased biological activity in the soil? So a mixture of cow dung, cow urine, then you have the ground floor, then after that you have the local variety of the soil in itself, the soil of the farm. All of that is mixed in a solution and is sprayed over. That is to augment the rate of decomposition naturally and will augment the availability of organic nutrients to the soil. Now, after this, when we talk about Bijamrut, Bijamrut is what? Bijamrut, here the term is Bij, that is the seed. So this, in a way, treats the seed. It talks about treatment of the seed before sowing it. So, treatment of seed. So, how you treat the seeds? So, basically, you will observe that all the seeds which are out there, so these seeds, first of all, they are disinfected with the usage of lime solution, etc. And then again, cow dung and cow urine is also used. And thereafter, it is kept in that treatment for some time in order to improve the rate of germination. Many of the times you would have observed you plant a seed, but it doesn't germinate as quickly as it should. So, in order to augment that, that is why you carry out Bijamrut. Okay. Then you have mulching. Mulching, so after you have planted the seed, now you have planted the seed after treating the soil first, then treating the seed after that, then you go for mulching. What is mulching? So mulching is a process of covering the top layer of soil with anything. For example, let's suppose you have dried leaves or twigs, or even in certain cases biodegradable plastics are there. So they cover the top layer of the soil. Why? In order to preserve the soil moisture, in order to ensure that the soil doesn't get impacted by excessive heating. Because you would have observed that in very hot days, if you have ever observed the soil around your house or anywhere, when it gets very, very hot, the soil starts to lose moisture and it compacts, it hardens. Now, when the soil becomes very hard, obviously it won't have the water retention and the air retention capacity. So that is why you cover the top layer of the soil. That is mulch. And it is done by various methodologies. I will show you the image also, what mulching refers to. So yes, straw is also used. Coverage of top layer of soil. And then you have the process of Wafasa. Wafasa is nothing but basically enrichment of, or the final stage which is attained, where the agroecological and agroclimatic conditions desirable for the crop growth, that is attained. So it is the attainment of this stage of Wafasa. So basically Bijamrut, Jivamrut and mulching, they help you attain the stage of Wafasa. So here I have given you the stages of the various different stages of ZBNF. So if you will take a notice of it, so initially you spray Jivamrut. This will be available to you in the PPT as well, and as well as the additional reading material. So don't worry about it. So it is a mixture of water, urine and dung, jaggery, pulses, flour, and the soil from the farm. All of that is mixed in a mixture and in a liquid and then is sprayed over. This enhances the soil biological activity. This enhances the availability and existence of many of these microbes required in the soil, and also worms, for example. Then you have the Bijamrut, where you treat the seed. So in this, the seeds are mixed in a mixture of cow urine, dung, edible lime, in order to disinfect the seeds from bacterial fungal infections which can happen, and also to improve the rate of germination, the rate at which the plants will start to grow. Then mulching, cover the layer of the soil with straw, dried leaves, twigs, etc., so as to retain the soil moisture. After doing all of this, you attain Wafasa. So Wafasa is more or less the product of Jivamrut and mulching, where you ensure that the soil is in perfect condition, perfect agroecological and agroclimatic condition, where it will promote the growth of the soil, or growth of the plants rather. That is the attainment of the stage, that is Wafasa. Okay. And along with this, you carry out intercropping, you carry out crop rotation to ensure retention of soil fertility. So this is very organic method of production. But here, there are certain criticisms also which have emerged over the past few years about this practice of ZBNF. And the criticisms are that basically, when you talk about ZBNF, it is supposed to be zero budget. The input cost is supposed to be zero. But then availability of, let's say example of pulses, jaggery, lime. Now these are available naturally only in the case where you have very large farms, where in one part you are producing pulses as well, in one part you are producing sugarcane as well, so you have jaggery also. And also it only refers to those kind of, or zero budget will be applicable only in those kinds of farmlands where, let's suppose, you have the availability of cows as well, because cow dung and cow urine, that is also required in this. Now what about those farmers, the small scale farmers? Around 87% of our farmers, they are either in the category of small or marginal, where the size of the farmland is excessively small. So in that background, in that situation, what do you attain? What do you have? You will have a very reduced amount of availability of these cow dung, cow urine. You need to buy it from somewhere. So it is not zero budget anymore. Okay, it is not zero budget anymore. So that is why these are the criticism, that it is not exactly zero budget. And secondly, the other criticism which is handed out for ZBNF is, or even organic farming in total, the second criticism works for the entirety of the sector of organic farming, and that is that you don't still have the exact empirical evidence that by this method will there be a substantial increase in productivity, will there be a reduction in productivity, will there be no change, if there is increase by what amount, if there will be a reduction by what amount. So we still don't have a clear picture about how this ZBNF can provide in an evidential manner how much increase or reduction in productivity will it cause. Generally, it has been observed that the amount of crop produced in many of the cases is slightly lower in terms of quantity as compared to the earlier situation. right? So that is why ZBNF and other methods of organic farming needs to be researched upon. We need to understand that what can be done so that the productivity is not damaged, the overall production is not hampered. Because we have seen in the case of Sri Lanka, where we saw the sudden imposition of organic farming led to an immediate farm crisis because many people were not aware about what to do, and it also led to significant amount of crop failures because sudden switch to that organic farming also without information can be very dangerous in the terms of productivity. So we need to carry out proper research to get a proper evidence based solution. Just like in the case of green revolution, you had Professor Norman Borlaug, MS Swaminathan, William Gadd, all of them, they worked about it, that how much fertilizer should be applied. That is where you have the derivation of the ratio 4:2:1, that for one unit of potash, you apply 2 units of phosphate and 4 units of nitrogen. Here, you don't have any of such ratios available. So, how much will it augment the soil fertility, etc.? That needs to be worked upon. Having said that, nonetheless, due to the significant impact created by the chemical fertilizers in our food chain, in our bodily functioning, and in the metabolism as well. Due to that, you have a kind of a disadvantage which is very apparent nowadays in terms of the chemical and synthetic farm methods. So that is why you will find the entire world generally switching over to organic farming. So the future lies with organic farming, because we have also seen that ever since we have started using the chemical fertilizers, the fertile lands, they have started turning infertile. Their productivity has reduced. Talk to any of your elders in the region of Punjab, Haryana, or even Western UP, the regions which have applied and implemented green revolution and even over applied that. Rather than 4 units of urea, we are applying 36 units of urea. Talk to your grandparents, for example, right? Elder generation, older generation. They will tell you that the soil in the region would be so very fertile that you throw any seed anywhere, it would immediately sprout up, right? But observe the fertility of the soil nowadays. Nowadays, you will observe that the condition is such, unless and until you carry out the pre-treatment of the soil, you carry out the post-treatment application of fertilizer, and more fertilizer you apply, more water is required. So now the soil is turning out to be infertile, reducing the overall fertility. So here, in the case of organic farming, the yield per hectare, that is still not very clear, and that needs to be worked upon. Okay. Now, why is Sikkim called the champion of organic farming? That is because Sikkim was one of the first states in our country to go for a complete organic cultivation and organic farming. And this organic farming was carried out across the state. So that is why. And understand, for the hilly regions, for the hilly states, and even the plateau states, where, let's suppose, in many of the areas, the connectivity is not very much, the infrastructure supply to the last end is not very good. In those areas, you will find that organic farming is the way to go. Organic farming can provide self-sufficiency at the side of the farmers as well. Okay. Biological cycles here refer to the carbon cycle, nitrogen cycles, etc. Right? In the time of climate change, when we are focusing on climate resilient crops, why natural farming is done, and is it possible in this environment? It is possible, my dear friend, provided we, and it, nothing can happen without adequate research. We need to carry out. Now, in the case of organic farming, always local indigenous varieties of seeds are preferred rather than a modified seed. Now, the local varieties of seed generally are more resilient to climate change and the vagaries of climate as compared to a lab grown seed, right? So, you need to devise a separate lab grown seed for drought resilience, etc. But otherwise, the local varieties, they are much more resilient. In the sense, the methods of organic farming is contrary to the methods of green revolution. Yes. Sometimes the soil lose fertility in the process of crop rotation. So if you carry out crop rotation in a scientific manner, it won't lose fertility. Okay. Now, then when we talk about mulching, so these disadvantages and concerns rather than disadvantages, the challenges for organic farming needs to be kept in mind. Now here, when we talk about mulching, what is mulching? So here you observe that the crops are planted in these regions, but the soil in between that is covered. The soil in between is covered here. Okay. So that coverage of the soil is done for what purposes? To preserve the soil moisture, right? To ensure that the soil temperature is also maintained. It is not exposed to excessive amount of heat, excessive cold conditions. And if the soil is exposed, it is also very prone to get eroded. It can get eroded by the availability of excessive amount of rainwater also, right? So in order to ensure that conservation, that is why in order to protect the soil, you cover the topsoil. In fact, many of the agriculturalists will tell you that leaving the topsoil exposed is similar to, for example, let's suppose you have a cut in your body, or you have a cut in your arm, let's suppose. Now, if you leave that cut or wound open, it will be exposed to significant amount of infections. It will fester. It can become disastrous. So always you cover the wound, right? So as to cover the flesh, cover the muscles. So that is what is done, what is required in the case of mulching as well. So they always will tell you never to leave any portion of the soil exposed. If you leave the soil exposed, it will be damaged, right? Now, here, a mulch is natural or artificially spread layer of plant residues or other materials on the surface of the soil. The important objective of mulching in agriculture are namely moisture conservation, temperature control, prevention of surface compaction. It becomes very harder, it becomes very compact. So there is a prevention of surface compaction, reduction of runoff and erosion, improvement in soil structure, and also weed control. The wild growth of the plants that you observe other than the crops, which in a way extracts multiple nutrients from the crop field, that will also be controlled in the process. So that is the purpose of mulching. Okay. Now, can urbanization also be a factor to infertility of soil? That is the roads on soil. So urbanization will lead to soil degradation in the sense, see, anyways, in our country, we have a very stringent measure of not diverting the agricultural farmland for any other purpose. Unless and until you are a politician out there, unless and until you are a person of very significant amount of contact, you will never be able to divert the farmland. So that is where in certain areas it is a matter of pollution which can impact the farmland adversely, but otherwise in the farmlands generally you will find that the roads, they are not allowed. If they are allowed in certain cases due to acquisition of land, etc., then the nearby farmlands, they will suffer in the sense of the dust and all the pollutants settling on them. Yes. Okay. Now, here, that brings us to the end of the topic. And here, we also oftentimes encounter the type of queries such as issues in agriculture, issues in Indian agriculture. So, what are the various different issues which are prevalent in Indian agriculture? One is majority of the farmlands, they are either very small or marginal. So let me write here issues. Now please understand, guys, again I will be repeating this, that these issues that you look upon, these issues should always be commingled with the portion that you have studied in the part of your economics. So that is where you commingle it, that whatever portion you have studied in economics, merge it up. Okay. So here you have small size of the farm. As I told you, around 86.7% of the farmers are either small or marginal. We don't have the presence of very large farmlands, right? And in these small farms, obviously, the farm size in many of the cases is so small that you cannot even deploy a tractor out there. You cannot deploy a harvester or thrasher because the size of the harvester will be larger than the size of the farmland itself. So that is where, in the case of the small size of farms, you have lower productivity. Then lack of irrigation, that is significant. Around 60% of the farmland, they don't have supply of irrigation. Then lack of research. Okay, there is a substantial lack of research. The agricultural research institutes that we have, ICARs, now these research institutes, for a long period of time, they have not brought about any new variety of seed which can withstand, let's suppose, drought conditions. They have not carried out a significant research in order to understand how organic farming can be implemented. So there's a greater disconnect, right? People, they also appear for exams in order to get into ICARs, but once they get there, there you have a full-time government job, sarkari job, where you are not concerned with the output. So they have to be made accountable, right? You need to have them accountable, that what is the output that you have generated. How do you justify your presence if you have not contributed anything positively? Okay, then you have lack of infrastructure in general, lack of technology penetration. Then after that, lack of awareness also you can talk about. Awareness. Then after that, lack of crop diversification. We are overtly focused on the growth of food grains. We are not focused on the growth of vegetables and other fruits. Vegetables and fruits can have the potential to suddenly increase the farm productivity, farm income, because they have a much greater amount of selling potential, right? But we keep on producing excessive amount of rice wheat, and all of that lies there in the buffer stock. So that is where, now obviously there are various different government programs where we have started distributing that buffer stock. That also incurs some amount of cost. Don't think about it that if it is there in the buffer stock, it is out there for free and the government can distribute it for all, because you have to understand that the government has got that in the buffer stock after buying from the farmers, right? So you are buying something which you are not using it up, so it is also a cost incurred. So lack of crop diversification is there. Then crop diversification means that you grow other types of crops rather than only wheat and rice. You grow vegetables, you grow cauliflowers, you grow tomatoes, you grow onions. So that is pulses you grow. That is diversification. Then after that, lack of storage spaces. We don't have enough storage spaces for the crops, right? We need cold storage facilities for crops such as, let's suppose, even for that matter, rice and wheat, but also for the vegetables. These storage spaces are very vital for their preservation. Otherwise, you meet with these kinds of impact where suddenly the tomato prices skyrocket, the onion prices they skyrocket, and we don't have enough storage spaces. So how will we get those storage spaces? The ideal answer from the streets that you will get is the government should construct the storage spaces, right? Anything that is an issue, the government should do it. But nowhere across the world has got the government got so much amount of capacity, let alone in a developing nation like India, where we are so thinly stretched. In order to make the resource allocation to every sector, we are very thinly stretched. So how do we make resources available for the large area? So that is why Here you need investment, public private partnership. You need private parties to enter into this. Only then it can be turned into a profitable business out there. So for that, we have lack of private investment. Okay. Then after that, larger population is dependent on agriculture. Larger population is dependent upon agriculture. So when you have larger amount of people dependent on the agricultural produce, obviously individual farm level income will reduce. So you need to divert that additional labor into what? Into manufacturing jobs. So you need to be able to create those manufacturing jobs in order to make agriculture much more productive, much more attractive as a sector. Then you have significant farm to market inflation. Small, less per capita size of land is the same as the first one. So significant farm to market inflation due to excessive role of middlemen. So in our country, across the world, if you compare, we have one of the most substantial farm to market inflation, farm to table inflation, in the sense the farmer, when he goes to the mandis to or the wholesale markets to sell their produce, they don't get, let's suppose they are selling the tomatoes, they will be selling the tomatoes at 4 rupees per kg, 3 rupees per kg, 5 rupees per kg. But when you go out there to buy it from the market, you will be buying at 50, 60, 70, 80 rupees depending upon the type of season that you are talking about. So while there is some amount of additional cost involved in transportation, in cargo handling, in storage, some amount of cost is involved there. But the rate of this rise is unprecedented. Nowhere across the world will you observe this kind of incremental rise from the farm to the market. That means nowhere in the world will you find a greater disparity at the price at which the consumers are buying it from the market and the price at which the farmers are selling it. So why does that happen? You have a large role played by middlemen. Now these middlemen, they are so very influential people out there. They have obviously got significant amount of political heft, economic heft as well. They are, if you go to any village out there, they are one of the most influential and prosperous people, right? They don't grow crops. Obviously with prosperity comes the ability to buy land and carry out cultivation in a very large tract of land. But there, they are not dependent on their agricultural produce. So when the farmer comes to them to sell their products, they charge a commission from the farmers. They put on a predatory price that, look, I will buy this product only at 3 rupees per kg. I don't care what is the rate, I will buy it at only 3 rupees per kg. Do whatever you want. Now what will the poor farmer do? The poor farmer doesn't have a choice that, okay, I will go to some other mandi to sell it up. That is not the choice available. And there is also a threat of the standing crop getting destroyed, of the harvest getting destroyed, so they have to deliberately sell it to them. No, so they charge a significant amount of commission from them, and they charge the commission from the consumers as well, right? So that is why the consumers will get it at a higher price. And who earns in the middle? These network of middlemen. And they have such a kind of a social influence, a political heft as well, that if, let's suppose, as a farmer, if you decide that this is a kind of a predatory price that doesn't work for me, and you decide, I will not sell to this middleman. So they have that nexus amongst themselves, that they will single you out, they will ostracize you, that this farmer's product nobody will buy. So now that you have been singled out, where will you sell your product? You are left without an option. So there is a significant amount of fear as well. These middlemen, they also start acting as money lenders. Okay, you don't have money, don't worry, take money from me. And they go for predatory prices, predatory interest rates, which pushes many of the farmers into the debt trap. This is one of the worst uh, illnesses which has influenced and impacted Indian agricultural system. You have thousands of these middlemen across the country having a jolly good time. I'm not saying that there is no role for middlemen. Middlemen are required in many of the cases to provide the smooth access between the producer and the consumer, but not at that predatory level. They need to be regulated now, because each of them, they have their own set of supporters and followers. It is very almost impossible to bring about a reform in this particular area. You have states such as for example, Kerala. You have states such as Bihar. Now they have worked significantly with their own state legislations to bring an end to this mandi system. The middlemen and their role is being reduced. So there, the farm sector is experiencing a double digit growth in certain areas, but still a long way needs to be traveled. Okay. Now, here, why there is a need of middlemen? Because still now we don't have an established market setup where a farmer from West Bengal can easily sell their product in Karnataka. So that national, you have NAM or ENAM, but it is not something which is readily accessible for every farmer out there. So lack of a pure and a proper national market. Lack of a true national market. Water supply comes under lack of irrigation. Okay. So lack of reforms also you can talk about. Yes, perfect. Agricultural reforms are the need of the hour. And agriculture is a sector where reforms have not been carried out for a very long period of time. Just keeping on increasing the MSP, it takes you to such an unsustainable level where after that there is no coming back. You are buying the products at such a high rate, and if the international prices crash down, which they generally tend to do, then you are left with excessive amount of buffer stock that you cannot sell anywhere. In fact, in around 2011, 2012, Supreme Court came very hard upon the central government, because it was found out, and media reporting that indicated that in many areas of Punjab, the government had bought these wheat bought the wheat from the farmers, and that wheat was lying out in the open because you didn't have enough storage space, and it could not be sold in the international market because the international market prices had crashed. So it was lying there infested with rats and getting destroyed in the rain. So that is where Supreme Court came down very hard upon all of the various different bureaucracy, the political class as well, that rather than getting it to waste, why don't you supply it to industries? Why don't you give it to the poor people out there? So that is when the things changed a little bit, but still a large distance needs to be covered. Okay. And lack of proper agricultural techniques, yes. And okay, water supply and okay, even they put only small amount of work and live a luxurious life, but the producers are the poorest. Always that is the case. So these are the various different issues associated in general. You can also elaborate the economic issues here. So climate change issues are there, changing climate, so that will come with a research. So you can talk about climate change, vagaries of nature, climate change, stress on the agricultural farmland because of increasing urbanization. The farmland is also under stress. Okay. Now, after that, we come to the next module. how from long term from how long the ration system, it has been there for decades now. It was in the late 60s, in the mid 60s itself, when you had the promulgation of the MSP system. And that is when the government started buying substantial chunk from the farmers. That was in order to give them an assured level of income. But sadly, it has morphed itself into a kind of a Frankenstein's monster that nobody could have imagined. I hope you are aware that you had a Shanta Kumar committee which was set up. I am sure you would study that in economics if you have not already covered it. There was a Shanta Kumar committee which was set up to investigate about the MSP and the benefit that it gives to the farmers. It was found out that from the 60s, only around 6 to 7% of the farmers have gained the benefit of it, largely concentrated in the region of Punjab, Haryana, Western UP. Be it the farmers in central part of India, eastern part of India, southern part of India, they regularly have to sell their products at the market price. They don't get the desired MSP out there. So that is where you have to revise and revisit the applicability of the entire setup. Okay. And is this the last session of geography? Ideally, it should be yes. If we are not able to complete the portion of mapping, we'll take an extra session. This is the 24th module of geography overall. Okay. So now, Garvet farm law was revolutionary, but it was politically backlashed. Okay. So now we come to the portion of minerals and industries. Here you have to realize what is relevant for your prelims, what is relevant for your mains examination. So for your prelims, by the way, this is also driven by current affairs. Okay. This is also driven by current affairs. So any new news story that you come across, please take a look around that news story. For example, lithium reserves found in the region of Jammu Kashmir. Right. So where else in India do you find the lithium reserves? Which are the regions of the world which are traditionally rich in lithium reserves? So that kind of an expansive study needs to be done. Okay. So that is where you get questions in the prelims primarily. Prelims, you get the questions from the portion of the mineral distribution. I have provided you with the list at the end of this slide and the PPT about all the various different minerals and their distribution as well. That is for your reference. Here, I would always advise you, dear friends, that take a look at this chapter after you have understood or taken a detailed look into the portion of physiography. Because the better you understand the physiography of the country, the origin of various different areas in the country, better you will be able to come upon the conclusion that what is required or where what kind of minerals can be found. In the mains, however, you get questions about industrial regions, and also location of industries. Okay. So that is also something which is relevant here. Now, when we talk about the mineral distribution, again, you have to be driven around the portion of current affairs. But that is something which you will frequently come across in your reading of the newspapers, etc. We will give you a brief detail here. We will be stressing more upon these industrial regions, industrial corridors, also what they are, and also the location factors determining the location of the industries. But before that, when we talk about minerals, so minerals and their classification, you would have studied in your uh, sixth or seventh or eighth science book. where you would have seen that basically minerals are broadly divided into metallic, non-metallic minerals. You also have a category of energy minerals out there, but the broader classification is metallic and non-metallic minerals. Metallic minerals, they refer to those category of minerals which have metallic properties. Metallic properties are what? They are malleable and ductile. What is malleability and ductility? So the ability to roll out very thin sheets out of any particular given metal, right, without breaking. So that is malleability. For example, all of you must be using aluminum foils. So those aluminum foils are what? They are made out of aluminum rolled into very thin sheet without breaking. That is malleability. They are good conductors of heat and electricity in general. Other than that, you will find that they are ductile in the sense that they can be rolled into very thin wires without breaking again. So that is malleability and ductility for you. Then when you hit these metals, they will emit a kind of a sound, a sonorous sound, a tin like sound out there. So that is the metallic property. So there also you have ferrous, non-ferrous, and precious metallic minerals such as gold, silver, platinum. All these are metallic minerals. Then non-metals, so they don't have a luster or a shine associated. They break very easily, right? They are not good conductors, they are good insulators. And then you have energy minerals: coal, petroleum, natural gas. Petroleum, natural gas, how they are created, we have seen. How is it that petroleum, and or in which region do you find the presence of petroleum and natural gas? In which part? Very good. Generally, whichever part has been underwater for some duration, generally continental shelf areas. When they come above water, or any portion which has remained underwater for a longer period of time, that is where you find petroleum and natural gas. In India, where do you find them? In India, you find them across the continental shelf region, Krishna Godavari Basin in the east, Bombay High in the west, then the region of Gujarat, Ankleshwar oil fields that you have, in the region of Rajasthan also, around the area of Bikaner, then around the region of Assam, the Jorhat Digboy region, that is also where you will find them. Okay. Now, here let us take a look first of all at where do you find the minerals in the ground or on the surface. Where is it that you find the minerals? So the minerals, in the case of the large igneous metamorphic rocks, they are to be found in the presence of a kind of a thin stretch and what is referred to as the faults and the joints within the rocks. In that, you will find a presence of a stretch of mineral. For example, let's suppose I have a rocky substrate like this. Now, there it might absolutely be possible that any particular mineral might have its presence somewhat like this. Okay. It won't be present in the entirety of the structure of the rocks, but it is present across a crack, a crevice amongst the rocks. These are what are referred to as veins. Veins of minerals. Sometimes you will also find that the minerals, they are present within the rock structure in terms of larger chunks, right? Very large chunks in a region. So these are referred to as lodes. So when you go for mining, in the process of mining, you try to target these veins and lodes out there. Okay, that is where you get a substantial supply of minerals. So just to give you an idea or an impression that when you talk about mines, mines are very small in comparison. So you continue to work in these mines till, let's suppose, you hit a vein here. Now, once you hit a vein, immediately you get an idea that, okay, here minerals are present. So the minerals might be present around it as well. You go and find out the extent of this vein. So then you find out that it extends significantly. So then you expand the mine. You move for the extraction of minerals in the other portion of mine. So you tend to extract the mine in the entirety of the region of the veins. In certain cases, you also might turn out to be very lucky where you hit a node or a lode rather, right? So let's suppose after mining all of this, you continue to explore and then you hit a lode. So then obviously it is like a jackpot that you have hit. So these veins and lodes are how the minerals are embedded in the large areas of rocks and various different surfaces of igneous metamorphic rock formations. Okay. Now, after that, you will also find lodes basically mean when you have the minerals which are found in larger chunks, larger dumps out there. That is what is referred to as lodes. Okay. Then, in the case of sedimentary rock, these minerals oftentimes are found in between the layers. For example, when we talk about iron ore deposit, limestone deposits, they are found many of the times within the sedimentary rock structure, embedded within the sedimentary rock structure. So that is where the minerals occur in various beds or layers of deposits. Another mode of formation involves the decomposition of the surface of rocks. So, for example, the chemical weathering. Chemical weathering, many of the times, exposes the hidden minerals inside a larger rock structure. For example, you might have a situation where you have a large rock, okay? And within that large rock, let's suppose you have a particular kind of a mineral present here. Let's say bauxite. Now, around it, if there is chemical degradation and chemical erosion and weathering which happens, bauxite is exposed. So that is how you have the presence of minerals there as well. Then you also have the presence of minerals in the form of placer deposits. Do we remember what are placer deposits, or have we forgotten about placer deposits? Do we remember what are placer deposits? Where have we studied the placer deposits? Good. We have talked about the gold deposits, yes, in the portion of continental drift. Very good, guys. Beautiful. So here, when you have placer deposits, no, they are not necessarily glacial deposits, no. So here, let's suppose a particular rock is there or a mountain is there where you have a certain mineral which is present in significant concentration. Now, let's suppose a river drains from this area. Now, this river, very slowly, particle by particle, will continue to pick up these deposits, right? Will pick up these materials and they will deposit it up somewhere here. It makes me very glad to see that so many of you actually remember this. So that means substantial amount of revision has been done. Good. So these are your placer deposits. And these are your source rock structures. Okay, those are the source rocks. And eventually, so example, you have in India, you have the case of river Subarnarekha, which moves to the Chota Nagpur Plateau region. Now that river Subarnarekha, the name of it in itself stands for the golden line or the line of gold. So there, Subarnarekha, basically, there you would have observed, or if you have not observed or you have not witnessed, there for a long period of time, the occupation was that many people would simply start moving onto the river bed where it is not very deep. And there they would, with the help of a sieve, they would filter out the sediments and the materials brought by the river, and they would get the gold particles here and there, and that would be the source of income. So there, a lot of placer deposits have already been found and extracted. Okay. Now, then you also will find minerals at the bottom of the sea floor, where the entire world is rushing after right now, and is after the achievement and attainment and exploitation of those minerals, and that is what is referred to as the polymetallic nodules. So basically, at the bottom of the sea floor, let's suppose on top you have the sea. So at significant depth, you will find that the various different minerals and salts, etc., which were present in the ocean, in many of the places they have condensed, they have come together to form these rounded structures, which consist of various different metals: manganese, cobalt, lithium, chromium, nickel, the rare earth elements as well. Okay, these are what are referred to as polymetallic nodules. Polymetallic because why polymetallic nodules? Because they consist of various different metals. They are not only inclusive of one metal out there, they are consistent of various different metals involved. So that is why you have the polymetallic nodules. So here, that is what you observe in this particular case. Okay. Now, furthermore, you will observe that these, so how do they get there at the ocean bottom? Many of the times you have these mineral deposits to be found in the coastal areas. They are eroded by the rivers, and they enter into the ocean, where the dissolved minerals over a period of hundreds and thousands of years, they start coming together, they form oxides, they become heavier, they simply sink to the bottom, and there is further more addition over a period of time. Many of the times it is the salts which are dissolved in the ocean, they come together and they end up solidifying. So it is a mixture of those. Right now, the entire world, in a way, is concentrating upon developing a technology by which we can extract these polymetallic nodules. Till now, we don't have an economically beneficial method by which we can extract these metals and still make profit at the end. Because right now, the technology that we have, it will be very costly to reach this area, extract a small portion, and come back up. So that is not economically productive. Okay. Now, here, now we come to the distribution of minerals in the country. Now, the various different minerals and their distribution, if you take a look upon. So, majority of the minerals, remember the portion of the origin of Peninsular Plateau that we talked about? If you recall that, we talked about the older portions of the planet. So majority of the minerals are to be found in these older portions of the planet. Majority of the minerals you will find in the region of the Chotanagpur Craton, Bastar Craton, the Karnataka Plateau, right? And the region of Aravalis and the Bundelkhand region. These are the mineral rich areas. Okay. Why? Because these are very old land masses. These are very, very old land masses, whereby you would have observed that these old land masses, the top portion has been eroded over a period of time, has been weathered over a period of time, and it is the bottom portion which has exposed itself. So that is what you observe in the case of this mineral distribution. Okay. So that is why you will find majority of the minerals. Now see, the Bastar Craton, it will extend into some part of Andhra Pradesh, some part of Chhattisgarh, some part of Madhya Pradesh, some part of Maharashtra as well. Chota Nagpur Craton will extend into the portion of Odisha as well. Okay, so thereby you will observe that majority of the minerals that you come across, all the majority of these minerals, they are situated, present in the region of Jharkhand, Odisha, Chhattisgarh, Maharashtra, Karnataka, parts of Madhya Pradesh, parts of Telangana, parts of Rajasthan. That is where all these minerals will be situated. Here, because the northern plains, they are primarily composed of alluvial deposits. That is why you won't find many of these metallic minerals to be present there. Okay. So because they are carried out by alluvial deposits, hence not much presence of metallic minerals. Now, let us take a look at these minerals one by one. So here, again, please understand it, that you don't necessarily have to ratify or rote learn each of these areas, that, okay, Chhattisgarh has 19%, Jharkhand has 28%. No, not required. Just look at the regions where they are to be found. Okay, that is it. that and drive around the portion of current affairs. Any mineral and their mining, if it is relevant in current affairs, take a look at it. Otherwise, don't get so much bothered by it. When we talk about, let's say, iron ore is supposed to be or is referred to as the mineral for development, because any of the developmental process that you come across, any of the developmental process, construction of buildings, highways, flyovers, airports, aircrafts, vehicles, any of these processes, equipment manufacturing, iron and steel is required. Where do you get that iron and steel? From iron ore. So, in a country's quest for development, iron is one of the chief components out there. Okay. Now, in India, we find iron in various different places. I will tell you about it. But across the world, if I can give you an idea, the development of the region of United States and North America has been based upon a large amount of iron deposit that you found around the region of the Appalachian Mountains. Appalachian Mountains, by the way, they are found to the east or the west of United States. Where do we find the Appalachian Mountains? Good. Across the east. Very good, guys. It is across the east. So these are one of the very old fold mountains. So there you find a lot of iron deposits. Development of Western Europe, the region of Germany, France, has been dependent on obviously a lot of coal deposits that were found in that have been traditionally found in Britain, has been traditionally found in France, etc. But also a lot of iron deposits that you find in the Rhine Valley, right? The entire region where the Rhine River flows, along with in the region of Germany, the Black Forest area around Stuttgart. So somewhere close to that. So that is where you will find significant amount of these deposits to be present as well. So Rhine Valley in general, the Appalachian region in general. So these are, so that has brought about industrialization, right? Even in the case of China. Now, when we talk about the ores of iron, there are four major ores of iron, out of which two are utilized significantly for industrial other purposes. Other are very low grades of iron ore. When I say low grade, it means that the content of iron in that ore is very less. So it is not of a good quality. So you have the presence of the ore such as magnetite, which is the purest kind. Here, the amount of iron present is close to around 70 to 75%. So it is also having a magnetic property, a very influential magnetic property, hence the name magnetite. Then you have hematite. This is where it comes in the average one, where you have a substantial amount of iron present. This is the one which is used for majority of the industrial purposes, for steel manufacturing, iron manufacturing. And then you have the poorer grades that are limonite and siderite. What is an ore? So ore is basically, so when you go for mining, it is not the case that in the rocks you have pure iron which is kept. All that you need to do is extract that iron, assemble it together, and you have the manufacturing of iron bars. Generally you will find that the iron particles, they are embedded within the rocks. So the rock that you extract, that is the ore. It consists of various different types of impurities as well. So that is where you purify the ore to extract iron at the end of it. Lodes will represent an ore presence, yes. Anywhere that you extract the mineral, minerals are present in ores. Okay, all the minerals that you will find, they are present in ores. For example, I will just give you a reference here. For example, let's suppose I have extracted a large rock. I have cut out a large rock from the region of the any of these areas which have, let's suppose, gold. Now, do you think in this rock only gold will be present? And I directly extract that gold brick from the rock and I keep piling it up? No, gold would be present maybe in one part here, one part there, one part here, one part here. That's it. right? Other than that, you need to carry out the proper purification. So in that much ore, you get only this much amount of mineral out there. Okay. Now, that is what is smelting good. So magnetite is the finest iron ore with a very high content of iron, up to 70%. Now, because the iron content is very high, it will have magnetic properties associated and very good conduction property. Very, very good conduction property. Almost as good as what you observe in the case of gold, silver, and these materials. Almost that good a conductivity there. So it has got very unique and specific purposes to be applied in electrical industry. For example, the large and sensitive circuit breakers that you have, there you will observe the use of magnetite strips. They are utilized. Okay, so excellent magnetic quality is valuable in electrical industry. In the powerful magnets that need to be devised, for example, when you have the I don't know how many of you know about the entire functioning of a motor generator set, that how the motor generator set works and how in many of the areas electricity generation is done. But there also you do require the availability of very strong magnets. So there magnetite is basically used. Yes, solenoids, for example. Yes. See, I generally refrain from using these terms. Otherwise, I always get blamed that you are teaching it in such a scientific manner that it is almost impossible for the art students to hold up. So that is why I refrain from using any of these terms. Nonetheless, so we carry out, and magnetite ores in our country, they are to be found in Karnataka, Rajasthan, okay, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Rajasthan, and Tamil Nadu. So, mostly in the southern part, and other than that, in the region of Rajasthan. That is where you find magnetite. Okay, so UPSC had asked a statement from this in 2018, where at that point of time, elimination method was still very prevalent and still very much utilized. So UPSC had asked a question that where is it that you utilize this, or how is it that, or where is it that in Rajasthan iron ore is present or not? Majority of the students, when they think about Rajasthan, they think about those sandy deserts where the actors they go there to have a song shot in the movies. That's it. They think about Rajasthan, they think about that, okay, Rajasthan means there would be camels moving here and there. Everybody would have a significant scarcity of water. That is Rajasthan for them. But they fail to understand that this is one of the oldest portions across the country. It has got abundant supply of minerals present in that, be it mica, be it the presence of iron, be it limestone, be it even crude oil. Rajasthan is minerally very, very rich. Okay, so you have to be on the lookout for those. Then comes hematite. Hematite is used for industrial purposes, for manufacturing of iron, manufacturing of steel bars, etc. Hematite as an ore is used. Hematite in our country is found in four particular areas or belts. If I can take the help of the map here to indicate the areas where you will find hematite ores. One is the region of the Jharkhand Odisha belt. That is the Singhbhum Mayurbhanj area, right? So that area of Jharkhand and Odisha, that is very rich in terms of hematite reserves. This is where significant amount of iron ore mining is done. Then in the region of Bastar, Durg, Chandrapur belt, that is also where you will find the significant presence of iron. Chandrapur is present in the eastern part of Maharashtra and Durg and Bastar in the southern portion. Then you also have the presence in the Tumkur, Bellary, Chitradurg, Shimoga belt, right? Remember we talked about that river Bhadra. When we were talking about river Tungabhadra, I had mentioned that as river Bhadra moves, it moves through an iron-rich area. So this is the area you would have heard about the Bellary brothers, right? The very not so very famous names when it comes to politics, but the Bellary brothers you would have heard about, who have made a fortune in terms of the various different methodologies of minings that they have basically deployed. So they also come from the same area. Then you also will find iron in the region of the Ratnagiri Goa belt. So these are the more areas where you find, 4 areas where you find the presence of iron ore. Okay. Now, that is, so hematite ore is the most important ore in terms of industrial production, industrial utility, and has a slightly lower iron content as compared to magnetite. But that is what is utilized for steel production. That is what is utilized wherever iron is required. Okay, magnetite has got very niche and specific utility. Hematite has got a broader utility. Odisha, Jharkhand belt, Durg, Bastar, Chandrapur belt, Bellary, Chitradurg, Chikmagalur, Tumkuru belt in Karnataka. Here, in fact, in Karnataka, you have one of the large reserves in terms of in one location, that is the region of Kudremukh. Again, as I have continued the trend, so there is no reason why I should stop the trend in the 24th session. If ever you get an opportunity to go there by road, and that too during the rainy season, not when it is raining immensely, but when it is very green. Kudremukh is one of the beautiful places, a sight to behold. It has got many different opportunities for you to explore trekking activities as well, where you can simply explore the nature out there. It has got some of the very beautiful waterfall structures as well there. So if ever get a chance, do explore Kudremukh area. And I'm not promoting Karnataka tourism. I'm just telling you about the places that you can visit, that you can have in your bucket list. Now, here, when we talk about Kudremukh, so this is where you have a very large bulk of significant amount of iron deposit out there. Large bulk. Okay. Now, obviously, owing to its sensitivity in the region of the Western Ghats, that much amount of mining nowadays is not allowed. And same is the case with the Maharashtra Goa belt. The Maharashtra Goa belt, that is in the Ratnagiri, as you come to the south from Ratnagiri into the region of Goa, that is where you will find this. That is why you will observe here the excessive presence of reddish characteristic in the soil as well. And in the region of Goa, iron ore mining would always form an important factor in terms of the occupation that people had. But the Kasturi Rangan committee report, the Gadgil committee report, all of them, when they indicated the threat to the eco-sensitivity of the Western Ghats, that mining process has been brought to a stop. So as a result of that, you will find that now that much mining is not carried out legally. It has been replaced by illegal mining activities and illegal mining mafias, something which would be very prevalent in the region of Odisha, something which would be very prevalent in the region of Jharkhand, that is also coming up in the region of Goa. Okay. Now, then we have another one of these metallic minerals, that is manganese. Now, manganese is a mineral which is very much required for the production of steel. From iron to steel, you need a production process or a smelting process. For that, manganese is required in larger chunks. So is mainly used in the manufacturing of steel and ferromanganese alloy out there. So nearly 10 kg of manganese is required to manufacture 1 ton of steel. So steel manufacturing is important for infrastructure, and there comes the role of manganese as well. Also used for manufacturing of insecticides, bleaching powder, paints, and various different chemical products. So Odisha tops the total reserves, followed by Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Jharkhand, Goa, Andhra Pradesh. So just keep in mind that all these metallic minerals that you will find, they will be found in close proximity to each other. Majority of these metallic minerals, they will be found very close proximity to each other. Then we talk about aluminium. Now, aluminium, if you talk about it, so here, at last, let us provide a list of the places to visit. Whichever place you visit, my dear friend, just observe the region around you. You will find many things that you can extract out of it. Okay, not in terms of minerals, but many of the outcomes that we have studied in geography, you will realize many of the things that lie around you, you oftentimes tend to ignore. You don't think about it that, okay, here you have a kind of a rock formation which might be the oldest across the planet. You are never appreciative of it. You read it only in the books, you ratify it, rote learn it, and write it in the exams. So explore your area first of all. That is the best. So here, when we talk about aluminium, coming back to it, aluminium is very important in the sense it is very strong, very, very strong, and at the same time lightweight. Iron is also strong, but it is very heavy. Iron is very, very heavy, but aluminium provides that strength, at the same time is very light. So there, aluminium finds a great amount of utility in automobile industry, the cars that are manufactured, the automobiles that are manufactured, airplanes that are manufactured, many of them use aluminium in significant proportion, and they are malleable and ductile. That is, they can be stretched into thin sheets, they can be elongated into thin wires without breaking very easily. So that is why it is very important. Now, earlier, there used to be a time, and that is a famous anecdote associated with aluminium, that at one point of time, aluminium used to be costlier than even gold because the extraction process was very costly. But now you don't have the extraction process, in fact, has become very cheap now. So that is why it is of widespread use. Generally, it is extracted from the ore, that is bauxite. From bauxite, a clay like substance that is whitish in color, that is alumina, is extracted. This is Al2O3. Okay. And then eventually from Al2O3, you have the aluminium, which is extracted. Bauxite is where you will find various silicates involved, and the silicates present as well, generally in the continental rocks, the continental areas. That is where you will find them. Now, in India, where are the bauxite deposits found? Around the region of Amarkantak, Maikal Hills, the plateau area of Bilaspur, Katni, also extending into the stretches of the southern part of Uttar Pradesh, in the portions around Tamil Nadu as well. So these are the regions where you will find these aluminium deposits or bauxite deposits. So Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, Gujarat, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, all these areas substantially rich in bauxite deposits. Copper. Now, when we talk about copper, it is very, very important for the production of electrical wires, for utensils as well. In fact, in our country, copper is being used for more than 2,500 years or more, right? So, it has been used in the subcontinent for thousands of years. You would have heard about the Bronze Age. You would have read about the Bronze Age, isn't it? Now, bronze utilizes the or has the utility of copper in its productivity. Now, upon analysis of the bronze of those times and the copper of those times, it was understood that the copper in those times would be extracted either from the Khetri mines in Rajasthan or from the region of the Hazaribagh area in Jharkhand. That is done by the analysis of the minerals. So that is where copper is to be found. Now, in the era where you have the requirement of electrification for all, as a country, we are moving towards the era where you do need electrification for all and other of those mechanisms. The utility of copper is set to increase. Copper and its use is said to India, uh, sadly, doesn't have sufficient production capacity. Now, it was the case that we did not have enough production capacity, but we had enough refining capacity. But ever since the closing of the Sterlite plant around the region of Tamil Nadu, our refining capacity has also gone. And now we are almost completely dependent on the copper imports coming from China. Okay. So that is where now, rather than having a self sufficiency, we are dependent on copper imports from China. So this is also a major point to ponder about, that how sometimes one or the other plant which closes down suddenly increases your dependability on certain country involved, and that always is not a good sign. That is oftentimes construed to be a kind of a larger game plan, that why is it that suddenly a plant was forced to shut down. There was no a kind of a recuperative measure, no kind of a kind of a step which was there that you can rectify your mistakes. Rather than, the plant was shut down, and now we are importing in heavy bulk from China. So in this entire Sterlite process, at the end of the day, who has benefited? That is something that we have to ponder about, we have to think about in the long term process. Okay, this is something which was in a way also highlighted when you had the Kudankulam plant, the nuclear power generation facility, which was being established in Tamil Nadu. Now, that was being established with the help of Russia. Now, at that point of time, obviously there were environmental concerns also, but you had large amount of protests for a long period of time. Later on, it was found out, and it is not my submission, it is not my conclusion. It is something which was submitted by the Intelligence Bureau officially in a sealed or in a, and not a sealed one. It was submitted into the Supreme Court, and there it said, Intelligence Bureau said, that many of these protests which was happening against the Kudankulam plant was in a way provided support by the US manufacturers of nuclear power plant machinery, because they were interested that rather than Russian equipment, you use the US equipment worth whatever cost it would be. And eventually, thanks to the state government at that point of time, and as well as the will of the central government, so both of them, they powered through, and they ensured that Kudankulam is constructed. Today, Tamil Nadu reaps the benefit of Kudankulam. So that is where oftentimes it is not as clear as it seems. There is oftentimes a larger picture which remains hidden from us. Now, it is critically deficient in copper reserve and production of copper. Being malleable, ductile, and a good conductor, copper is mainly used in the various cables, electronics, and chemical industries. So here, Balaghat mines in Madhya Pradesh, Khetri mines in Rajasthan, and Singhbhum district of Jharkhand around the Hazaribagh area. These are the leading producers. Just to give you an idea about the ores and the production process. So, Rajasthan is credited with the largest amount of the resource of copper ore. You will observe the ore is 668 million tons. So the ore is 668.5 million tons. And then the metal in that ore is only around 4 million tons. Rest are impurities. So you can think about it, that in the larger ore, what is the concentration of metal or the material inside that? So that is basically about the various presence. Now, then you have a non-metal, that is limestone. Limestone is significantly utilized for cement production, because limestone is rich in calcium and magnesium carbonates. Where is it that limestone is traditionally to be found? In which geographical areas is limestone traditionally to be found? Yes, good, Sayed. No, I'm not talking about the states. No, I'm talking about the geological regions. So, in the regions which have been underwater, the continental shelves, for example, there you would have a deposit. So remember the portion of organic sedimentary rocks that we studied? There we encountered the formation of limestone, where all the calcifying or the calcareous animals that you have, now when they die, the shells, they get deposited. The coral reefs, they when they die, you have the reef structure of calcium carbonate. All of them, they harden eventually, and deposits are found, layers are found, called as limestone. That limestone metamorphoses into the formation of marble. So here you observe this. It appears in the layered format always, which tells you that it has been in the form of series of various different deposits which have happened. Okay, so that is where you'll find them majorly in areas which have remained underwater at some point of time in the history. It is very important as a kind of a raw material for iron and steel industry, also for cement manufacturing. Why iron and steel industry? Because in the iron smelting process, you do require to melt the material in a blast furnace where the temperatures are very high. Now, blast furnace you cannot construct with a normal material. You require those materials which can withstand very high temperature. So that is why the blast furnace is lined with the limestone bricks from inside, and that can withstand high temperature. Also, the binding property of calcium carbonate in the and carbonate in the region of limestone, that is used for cement manufacturing. Okay, so in association with rocks composed of calcium carbonate or calcium and magnesium carbonate in the sedimentary rock of most geological formation, raw material for cement industry and iron ore industry. In India, it is typically to be found in the region of Karnataka, in the region of Madhya Pradesh, in the region of even Rajasthan, Gujarat, Meghalaya, where you will find a lot of these limestone caves and karst topographical features. If you recall the portion of geomorphology at all, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, in these areas, even in Uttarakhand, in Nepal also. So, why Uttarakhand and Nepal? Because many portions of the Himalayan mountains that you have, they have been a part of the Tethys Sea. So that is why you have these limestone deposits to be extracted from here. Then you have an important non-metal, and yes, lacustrine deposits as well. Very good, Saloni. So after mica, we will give a break. Don't worry. So here, when we talk about mica, mica is a non-metal. Mica is a non-metal and is a very good insulator. It does not allow electricity or heat to pass through. Okay, so that again brings a significant utility in electrical industry. Generally, you will observe this mica. If you observe, you will observe the arrangement in the form of various different sheets. Okay, you will observe the arrangement in the form of various different sheets. Now, not only are they good insulators, they have a very good dielectric strength. For those of us who don't know the dielectric strength, basically, no, if let's suppose a high amount of electricity is passed and or a large amount of charge is present, large amount of charge is applied from both ends, it will not allow the charge to pass through. It will hold itself together, and the material will not disintegrate under that high amount of voltage difference or the charge difference. The material will hold its integrity. So that brings about increased utility in the various insulators that are designed. So excellent dielectric strength, low power loss factor, insulating properties, resistance to high voltage. Traditionally, mica is to be found in the region of Rajasthan, Jharkhand. If you move between the region of Ajmer towards the region of Pushkar, let's suppose, you will find embedded within the rock certain mica deposits. If you move around the region of, let's suppose, from Dhanbad in Jharkhand all the way to Hazaribagh, there also you will find these on the sides of the rocks itself. Mica is embedded in certain thin sheets. So mica presence and prevalence is quite significant. So it is basically found in the pegmatite ore. So Rajasthan accounts for 51% of the resources, followed by Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, and Bihar. Okay. Mica is used, yes, in Gaya region also. Mica is used is in devising insulators, right? Insulators which are required in order to ensure that the electrical charge does not leak through. That is where mica is to be used. Pegmatite is an ore. Pegmatite is an igneous rock out there. Okay, so it is an ore. Okay, right? So now we take a break. After the break, we come to the portion of coal. What type of questions may come in prelims and mains related to metals? So in mains, you don't get questions related to these minerals. You generally, in the mains from this area, you will get questions associated with the location of the industries. That is what we will be focusing upon immediately after the break. But in the prelims, you do get some questions certain times, and that is based upon the current affairs, also upon the location of these minerals. So that is why I will provide you with, I have provided in the PPT itself a detailed list of the regions, the states where these metallic, non-metallic minerals are to be found. That is for your perusal. Okay. Why limestone is not limestone is found in Chhattisgarh MP region, as it is not near the coastline. Is Meghalaya in the region of the coastline? No. Is Rajasthan at a coastline? No. So even the regions of Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh that you see, at some point of time, these were underwater when these were individualistic cratons. So they were significantly underwater in many of these areas. Okay. So all these areas. Why minerals are not found in Western Ghat area? These are also results of basaltic lava. So their degradation has not happened. There, because all the other regions of Peninsular Plateau that you see, they have been created much, I suppose, billions of years before the region of the Deccan Trap. So that is why in the regions of Karnataka Plateau, in the region of Chota Nagpur Plateau, in the region of the Bastar Plateau, in the region of Telangana, Malwa Plateau, not even Malwa, Bundelkhand region, there has been degradation and weathering which has occurred. In the region of Maharashtra and the area of the Western Ghats, because there has been a very recent volcanic activity around 80, 90 million years back, that is why it will take some time for them to be degraded and then to expose the mineral rich areas. Okay, right? So now we take a break, and after the break, so we take a 15 minutes break, guys. Take a good hearty 15 minutes break. We will extend the session ever so slightly, not significantly much. We will extend the session ever so slightly. If it is not possible for the mapping to be taken today, we will take an extra class for mapping. This 24th session, we will not rush it, as has been the policy throughout. We'll not rush it. So take a good 15 minutes break, and we'll be back in 15 minutes. Okay. I hope we are aware of that. Why mica looks like old books? So it is because it appears in a very thin sheet like format, and it has got multiple different layers associated, hence by digging of earth. Okay. Coal is to be found as a result of the fossilization of the dead plants and dead trees, rather, right? So when you have a lot of these dead trees, now when they get deposited and when they die, and there are a series of these trees which get deposited over them, over a period of time, if a lot of sedimentation has happened, then over a span of billions of years, millions of years, over that span of time, the process of carbonification takes place. Carbonification takes place. Now, that process of carbonification is basically the enrichment of carbon. So, here, the wood or any of the substance in life substance that you talk about, so they are enriched with the presence of carbon. be it wood, leaves, even our body, we are all carbon based organisms. So it is the wood which is present where the carbonification process, when it takes place, all the other impurities, they dissipate, they decompose, but the carbon starts concentrating. So that concentrated carbon, after millions of years, it exposes itself in the form of coal. Coal is the enriched form of carbon. That is why on burning coal, we get the source of energy. Now, depending upon how much amount of carbonification has taken place, coal and the types and the varieties of coal are divided into anthracite, bituminous, lignite, and peat. Okay? Anthracite, bituminous, lignite, and peat. Now, these varieties of coal, they are classified based upon the carbon content. In the case of anthracite, for example, the carbon content in certain cases can be as high as 90 to 95%, with the impurities such as vapor and other impurities being present in very less amount, sulfur, etc., being present in very less amount. It is the purest grade of coal out there. Then bituminous. It is the one which is used for industrial purposes. That is where you have the carbon content of close to around 80-85%, 75 to 80%, somewhere in that range. And the rest is impurities. Lignite and peat, they are poorer grade of coal. In the case of peat, there is not significant carbonification which has been done. So it still retains that brownish appearance. It still retains that woody property of being arranged in various layers. It will give you that layered format. And also, when you burn peat, it will give a lot of smoke, less energy. In the case of anthracite, lot of energy, least amount of smoke. In the case of peat and lignite, lot of smoke, least amount of energy. Okay, so that is based upon where and when carbonification has happened in Indian subcontinent. What constitutes the Indian subcontinent now? In these areas, carbonification process in majority of the parts was initiated around 200 million years back, roughly around that time period. Majority of the good coal that we find. Yes, there have been carbonification process initiated even around 50-55 million years back. That is the tertiary grade coal, which we will take a look into. So that is why in India, majorly you find bituminous variety of coal. Anthracite in India is not found in significant proportion. Please understand, greater the time elapsed and greater the amount of pressure exerted, better is the grade of coal which is attained as well. Okay, so in India, anthracite is to be found only in certain places across the region of Jammu Kashmir. And that is because that region not only is older, not as old as the Peninsular Plateau, but that region has underwent such a huge amount of compression that you have the carbonification process which has been accelerated. In areas such as North America, in certain areas of Europe, in areas such as South Africa, in areas such as Australia, in many of these areas, carbonification process was initiated almost 350 million years back. So there you find good anthracite variety of coal, right? Other problem with the coal that you find in India is that Indian coal has got very high sulfur content. And when you burn it up, there's a lot of ash which is generated and energy efficiency is not very high. That is why, despite being very rich in terms of coal deposits, oftentimes we are in a way forced to import coal from these particular countries in general. Okay, so you will find that India tends to import coal from Australia, from South Africa, from these countries. India always has a tendency to import coal. Okay, yes, coal is formed in the sedimentary rock formation. Okay, how carbonification occurs? So basically, think about it. Let's suppose in a region you have the trees which have died and which are placed over there, series of these trees. Now, on top of them, another set of deposits happen. These deposits will exert their pressure. A lot of these deposits will happen. They will exert that pressure. And under that huge pressure, under some temperature as well, the wood gets converted into coal. Wood converts into coal. Okay, that happens when the other impurities, they are dissipated, and you have the enrichment of carbon. Carbon gets concentrated. Gets concentrated. That is why in the poorer grade of coal, that is peat, you will still find the retention of the woody characteristics. It will give you the brownish appearance as well. Okay, so when you take a look at the types of coal, you have anthracite. That is the best quality of coal, which comes from around 80 to 95% of the carbon content. When you burn anthracite, it will give you that bluish flame with almost negligible amount of smoke, because when carbon burns, it will produce carbon dioxide, and it is the impurities which appear to or which give you the appearance of the whitish smoke that you see. So lesser the impurities, lesser will be that whitish smoke. So it has the highest calorific value in terms of the energy produced, and in India it is only found in small quantities in the region of Jammu Kashmir, but anthracite is to be found in the region of South Africa, in the region of United States, also in the region of Indonesia. Now, after this, bituminous. Now, bituminous is the one which is most widely used for various purposes of energy production, for electricity production as well. And here you will find that there is a low level of moisture content. It is widely used and has got a very high significant calorific value. Found in Jharkhand, West Bengal, Odisha, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, parts of eastern Maharashtra, that is the Chandrapur region. So there also you will find the bituminous coal. The poorer grade, that is lignite and peat. Lignite is brown in color, right? Woody characteristic. So it has got only around 40 to 50% of carbon content. Rest of it is impurity. So it is an intermediate stage. Look at this statement carefully. It is an intermediate stage which happens during the alteration of woody matter into coal. It has got high moisture content, so it gives smoke when it is burnt. It is found in Rajasthan, Lakhimpur, and Tamil Nadu. Then, Tamil Nadu, around the region of Neyveli, right? Peat has less than 40% of carbon content and is the first stage of transformation from wood to coal. So that is why it has got very low calorific value, and even it burns like wood, which gives a lot of smoke. So when you burn wood, energy produced is very less, smoke produced is very high. So these are used generally for domestic purposes. Domestic purposes. Okay, and cottage industry. This is also used in small scale industries. Industry. Okay. For thermal power plants, etc., generally bituminous is put to use. Now, based upon the time when that deposits have happened, when the carbonification has happened, in India, you have the classification of coal into Gondwana grade coal and the tertiary grade coal. Gondwana grade coal represents those coal formations where the process of carbonification was initiated somewhere around 200 million years ago. So across the older rift valleys of river Damodar, that is around the region of Raniganj, around the region of Dhanbad, around the region of Bokaro, that is where you will find a lot of these coal areas. Then Mahanadi, Godavari river valleys also you will find these. Okay, so which are about 200 million years old. The major deposits in India are Gondwana, which are of metallurgical grade and are located in the Damodar Valley. Remember that Damodar is one of those rivers which drains through a rift valley system, right? Generally, in rift valley systems, you do find some presence of coal. So, Jharia, Dhanbad, Raniganj, Bokaro coalfields. Besides that, Godavari, Mahanadi, Son, and Wardha Valley, they also will have Gondwana. The newer deposits, that is the tertiary grade coal, that is where the deposits have happened in the recent past. That is around 55 to 40 million years back. So found in the region of Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Meghalaya, where the deposits have happened in the recent past. After the Indian plate has collided with the Eurasian plate, then these deposits have happened. Now here, we also come across, so can we say that smoke is the water vapor? Not only water vapor, but also you have impurities such as sulfur, you have impurities such as silicates. Now, these impurities, they also burn. So that produces a lot of smoke. Okay. Does peat produce more energy? In comparison to what? Peat produces the least amount of energy. Carbon is the one which produces energy. Combustion of carbon is what produces energy. So greater the amount of carbon which is present, greater is the amount of energy produced. So anthracite has the largest amount of energy produced. Peat has the lowest amount of energy which is produced. Okay. Now the year is 2023, but how the coal is formed are millions of years. Okay. So all the minerals that we have studied till now, do you think they have been created in the recent past, in the past few years or so? Mineral formation is something which comes with the formation of the land itself. And when we are talking about the carbonification process, that compression of wood, that compression and carbon enrichment of wood, that takes millions of years altogether. So the wood might have gotten deposited there 200 million years back, and the compression over the 200 million year period, that would have led to the formation of that wood or conversion of that wood into coal, right? So that is why it takes millions of years. Or whether I am not able to understand the question that you are putting forward. Okay, can we remove impurities from coal? Generally, it is done by not in the lower grade, but in the higher grade. When you extract it from the ore, you wash it off. You wash it off in the form where you have the various coal washeries. So there you wash it off. Okay. Do we utilize ore impurities? Not much. Please. What kind of questions we expect from this? From this, you can have a basic question that which is which has got greater amount of carbon content. Where is it that anthracite or bituminous is found? These kind of basic prelims questions can be framed from here. Okay, so see, please understand, for every mineral that we cover, please don't have the same question that from copper, what kind of question can be asked? From aluminium, what kind of questions can be asked? Understand the general trend of it is not as if every year UPSC will ask you a question from coal, every year UPSC will ask you a question from copper. Every UPSC has not asked a question from this particular portion for the past 3 years now, and has not asked a particular question from this in prelims for some time now. But it doesn't mean that but UPSC has had a trend of asking questions about the uh, positions of the important minerals, the locations of the important minerals. That is what I have been continuously talking about, that when we talk about these coal deposits, or any of these mineral deposits, look at the basic areas where they are created and then concentrate upon the portion of current affairs, whichever portion is in relevance. From there, a question is oftentimes derived. Do I need to write it down so that it is understood, or is it understood like that itself? Do I need to write it down? Please let me know if you need that in a written format. Okay. See, many of you were saying not required. See, you have a long list of people who say that it is required to be written. So let me take a slide here, or let's do one thing. Types of questions. So do you follow the same approach for all the subjects, or do you have a better approach for the other subjects? Do you follow the same approach, that write it down, that please tell me that this type of question will only be asked and only then I will proceed further? Okay. If yes, then I can only provide all the good luck for you for the type of questions which are being appeared in the prelims and the kind of variations that are appearing in the prelims. So I think many of us are still treating it as if we are appearing for the class 10th board examination. So UPSC prelims paper is something which is going to surprise you very pleasantly, if not unpleasantly, to put it in a mild manner. So types of questions: basics of mineral distribution. But in all seriousness, guys, I would urge you to get a bit more serious in your preparation if you really want to clear the civil services. If you simply want to carry out the process of preparation for years altogether, if you want to be one of those veterans that I have prepared for this examination 5 times, 6 times, fair enough. If you want to really clear this examination, get a bit more serious. Okay, basics of mineral distribution across the country. The minerals in relevance for current affairs, and the location where they are found. Okay, does that satisfy the query now? Is that what was required? Ashay, is that now clear? Or do you want some other aspect to be written as well? Okay. So now we come to the portion of another of these discussions. And okay, nonetheless, so we come to another of these discussions that is referred to as rat hole mining. Rat hole mining. What is this process of rat hole mining? Now, when we talk about rat hole mining, it has been a prevalent issue for some time now, and it is one of the methodologies of illegal mining. This is not legal, this is an illegal method of mining. It is done at an individual level at a smaller scale. So, generally, what you will observe is, yes, Sergeant, we'll cover that today itself. So, here, generally, what you find is, in a particular area, let's suppose here you have a coal bed, a coal seam. Okay, let's suppose. Now, in these coal seams area or the regions which are rich in coal, here, let's suppose the Coal India or any of those organizations which are uh, supposed to carry out the mining purposes, they have carried out the meaningful exploitation and extraction of minerals here, and there is not much mineral which is left, so they will evacuate this area. Or let's suppose the mining is being carried out in this area. So what people tend to do is they dig a very small hole. They dig a very, very small hole. And that hole is only large enough to give them access, in the sense that only one person can either crawl through at a point of time, right? And they go there, they chisel out, they hammer out the portion of the coal, and they bring it out. They bring it out in various baskets, buckets, and they sell it to the market, the domestic market that you have. This is carried out in large scale, huge proportion. It causes a lot of loss to the exchequer as well. And it was a kind of an estimate which was provided way back in around 2008, 2010, where the chairperson of Coal India came up with a kind of a report where he said that every year we lose close to around 7 to 8,000 crores of revenue because of this illegal rat hole mining. So that is the problem and the menace of rat hole mining. But the other issue is that you will find that there are hundreds and in fact tens of thousands of families who are dependent on this illegal mining methodology. Does not mean that this is a correct process. If ever you go through the region of Chhattisgarh, Odisha, Jharkhand during late evenings, for example, you will find that in these coal rich areas, around these mountainous areas or around the hilly areas, you will find small bonfires lit in close vicinity. All those, many of those are centers of rat hole mining. Now this is very dangerous as well. It can have consequences such as, let's suppose the top of it, the top portion, the soil simply collapses, and it can lead to immediate death there itself. It can happen, as has happened in Meghalaya in recent past, that this is filled with water, rainwater, will lead to drowning of the people there. But worst is what has happened in the region of Jharia, close to Dhanbad in Jharkhand. During one of these processes of rat hole mining and the extraction of coal, an accidental fire was lit, and that fire lit up the coal bed, the coal seam. Now, coal bed is not a thin sheet of coal which is there. We are talking about many kilometers wide, many kilometers thick, many kilometers long coal layer that lit on fire. And that fire rages till today. It has been more than 2 decades since that fire has been burning in the region of the Jharia coal fields. And if you take a look at the before after pictures of Jharia, if you happen to go to Jharia today, it will give you an appearance of a deserted town, a town which has been devastated because of fire which has been continuously burning underneath. The land has started cracking there. Many portions of the land has simply subsided and sunk. What you see unfolding in the region of Himachal Pradesh right now, where all the buildings, they are falling continuously. Jharia has been experiencing this for almost 2 decades now. It has led to the depopulation of the region. People have migrated outwards, and that is because of the rat hole mining. Whenever authorities, they try to clamp down on that rat hole mining, the ever so powerful mining mafias are very, very powerful. They have a lot of political connect and a lot of political contact, obviously because they have a significant amount of wealth as well. So in Odisha, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, these mining mafia moguls, they are so very well connected that whenever the law enforcement agencies, they want to have a crackdown on these illegal mining, there is a kind of a very vicious outcome associated. So that is why this persists, and it is becoming ever so prevalent. It is something which is now prevalent across majority of the coal beds of the country. So that is the aspect of rat hole mining, which has also been asked in the examination. Okay. Now, after that, we come to the portion of industries. Okay. Before that, again, as I have been reminded about it again. So today is the 24th session of geography, and ideally it is supposed to be the final session of geography, but we will do one thing. We will take a separate session for mapping. In the PPT itself, you will get the mapping module. So next Saturday, we will arrange a separate mapping session where we shall be talking about the mineral distribution, the locations, and the locational features for mapping. It won't be a 3.5 hour session. It will be a 1.5 or 2 hour session that we will have only for mapping, where we will talk about how to develop the insight about mapping, how to explore mapping, and those of you who require it, I will write it down as well, that what portions are supposed to be looked into. I will talk about the importance of areas such as Katanga Plateau, about the lithium triangle, etc. Those areas I will talk about the mapping portion. And also, yes, again, another thing, the feedback sheet, most of you would have got it by now. Do fill it up. And here I would also ask you guys to understand the role played by the subject matter experts, right? Many of you, while attending the sessions, you have a direct interaction with us, with me, and there you get a lot of opportunity to vent your anger. Many of the times I also, out of sheer frustration, do vent my anger. But the unsung heroes of this entire process of learning are the subject matter experts. So please don't forget to express your gratitude, humble gratitude towards them. These are the people who have cleared mains multiple times, appeared in the interviews multiple times, so they are as knowledgeable as one can get. And still they are sitting out there listening to all the various different types of expletives that you hand out to them, all the various different types of frustrations that you went out, and still very patiently they try to solve all the various different queries that you have put forward to them. So you have to understand the importance that and the important role that they have played, from the solving of the queries from day one to forwarding the various different queries and getting your queries resolved. So please have that sense of gratitude, if not for me, at least for them. Okay, I at least have the opportunity to express my frustration sometimes, in terms of various different types of sarcastic moments, but they sadly don't get that opportunity. So you have to understand. Okay, now the out session is also going to be there next Saturday. Okay, tomorrow we won't have a class. Process of blast furnace, that is something you will study in science and tech. Bermuda Triangle. Bermuda Triangle, again, I will say, why this is not important for your exams, my dear friend. Bermuda Triangle, the Ram Setu, the city of Dwarka, Kailash ranges, and whether there is divinity presence on the Kailash ranges, that is not relevant for your exams. Okay, for that I'm sure you have multiple different types of entertainment masala channels on YouTube which are available, who have gathered millions of views out there, that let me tell you about the secret of Bermuda Triangle. Okay, so please entertain yourself with those factors. As of now, let us concentrate with the portion of civil services. We are here to help you achieve the civil services. I hope that is your aim as well. If your aim is to simply go for a kind of an entertainment out there, I'm very sorry to disappoint you. That is not something which will be provided here. Okay. Land under Jharia coalfields is still burning. Yes, it is. What is, again, you are asking the same thing. What is the process of blast furnace? Blast furnace, okay, blast furnace is that entity where, or that setup where the temperature is at a very high rate, where you have the ore, filtered ore, which is melted, and the purified molten iron is extracted out of it. If you are seeking the detailed diagram for the blast furnace, if you are seeking the detailed process of the blast furnace, that is something which will be covered in the portion of science and tech. Yashi, is that understood? Before you write that question again, is that understood? Can we not extinguish fire under Jharia? So various different experiments have been tried out, but there is a, a kind of difficulty which is faced, because we are talking about a large coal bed which has been put on fire. We are not talking about a small area of coal deposit which has been lit on fire. So in that large area which has been lit under fire, how can you put out that fire? So that is the issue. Okay, so that is why it is still burning. Now, then we come to the portion of industries and their classification. Industries is a module that you will study, and you would have studied in the portion of economy either ways. Here we are concentrating on the basic classification on the industries, and we are going to concentrate upon the location of the industries, the factors which influence the location of the industries. So here, when we talk about these industries, so basically they are classified based upon the methodology of production. How is it that the production is and the production process is carried out? Okay, that is something which is ensured. So you have the classification as primary industry, secondary industry, as well as the tertiary industry. So when we talk about the primary industries or secondary or tertiary industries, it is dependent upon what is the method of production, what is the methodology of production, what is the kind of raw material which is used, and what is the entirety of the production process. Okay, so in the case of the primary industries, here you use the natural raw materials. For example, you talk about the agro based industries out there, you talk about the mineral based industries out there. So they are the, for example, mining processes, etc., they come into the category of primary industries. Here significant value addition does not happen. Value addition happens in the case of the secondary industries, where generally you have the output of the primary industries as the raw material. So shipbuilding, automobile manufacturing, aircraft manufacturing, all of these, they come into the category of secondary industries. And then you also have the tertiary, that is generally concentrated with the services sector. For example, let's suppose the hotel business, for example, the restaurant business, the airline industry. Aircraft is manufactured by someone else. For example, when we talk about the aircrafts, the Boeings and the Airbuses of the world, they carry out the manufacturing, right? But when it comes to operation of the aircrafts, you have Indigo, SpiceJet, Air India, etc. So these are tertiary sectors. So banking, insurance, they become a part of tertiary. Now, this basically, we will talk about the classification of the secondary industry as well. This is also classified into heavy industry, and the light industry. This is based upon the raw material, whether the raw material, let's suppose the or the finished product. If the finished product, let's say, is a rail locomotive or a large motor generator set, turbine generator set, it will be a heavy industry. Shipbuilding, heavy industry. Then automobile industry, heavy industry. Light industry, for example, let's suppose the electronic items, this electronic pen out there, the watches that we have, all this will come under the category of light industry. So here, primary industries, they are usually very simple industries involving processing of raw materials to give input goods for the secondary sector. Value addition is usually minimal, and they are usually material oriented. Okay, so example, coal mining and washing, oil refining, flour milling, metal smelting, stone crushing, these are the examples of your primary industries. All these are your examples of primary industries. Okay, so here you will find that the raw material is directly from the nature itself. Not much value addition is done. So obviously, they won't be emitting significant amount of pollutant in the atmosphere as well, right? Next, we have the secondary industries. Here, a large amount of value addition is done, so it is capital intensive. It requires significantly larger amount of investment process. So they are complex and diversified, which take input from the primary industries and add value in the different stages of processing. Okay, they keep on adding value. The value additions are so significant that they may have a locational preference in the favor of market. So the value addition, for example, steel. Now steel is a raw material. From that steel, you can manufacture a turbine, you can manufacture a ship, you can manufacture a locomotive. Generally, you will favor the location of the industries in such a place where you have the accessibility, availability of the market demand as well. Okay, so that comes under secondary industries. This is also classified into heavy and light industries depending upon the final output of the product that is generated. So for example, heavy chemicals, heavy machinery, locomotive, shipbuilding, heavy electrical, they come under the category of heavy industries. So they are identified by the nature of the bulky product or very high capital inputs. So here they can also influence the environment adversely. This require high amount of investment. Okay, they require a significantly higher amount of investment process. Light industries, so their products which are lighter in weight require less power, right? Less polluting. Now, many of these light industries, they come into the category of what is referred to as footloose industry. Footloose means, what is the English meaning of the term footloose? Nitin, is it not required to write about quaternary? No, quaternary and quinary not that important, but a basic information is more than sufficient. Footloose basically refers to, the English terminology of it is something which is highly mobile, which is not stagnant at one place. So these are those particular industries which end up moving or being located in a place where they are not dependent that this is the source of raw material, so here I have to be located. They can be located anywhere based upon the availability of manpower. Skilled manpower and the accessibility to the market is the key point for the location of these industries. So here, skilled manpower and accessibility to the market are key determinants for the location. For example, when we talk about diamond polishing, now that polishing of diamond, that is one of the centers for that is Surat, right? Surat in Gujarat. Now, diamond cutting and polishing. Now, is it that diamond is found in Surat? Is it that diamond is found in that location? No. But why is the diamond industry in India situated or centered around Surat? Because you have availability of skilled manpower, right? When you talk about electronic manufacturing, now electronic manufacturing, take the case of Samsung or any of these, Foxconn, for example. Foxconn is opening up plants in various parts of the country. Now, do you think they are looking at where the raw materials are available? No, they are looking at where skilled manpower is available. Okay, so these industries usually require very small production space, are less polluting, and require highly skilled workers. Watch, camera, diamond cutting, precision electronics, all of these. For example, take the case of watch. Now, all of you would have heard about Swiss watches, how the Swiss watches out there are the best quality of the watches out there. Now, why is it so? Is it because the raw materials, they are found in the region of Switzerland? No, you have the skilled manpower there. Okay, so that is basically about the secondary industries. Then you have tertiary sector, which generally provide services, trade, etc. And the scale of operation is so large, it is regarded as an industry. Banking, insurance, consultancy, etc. Now we come to the portion of the locational factors for industries, the factors which determine the location of industries. Now, any industry, when it is being established, it has got only one purpose. The purpose is to make profit. Okay, all the other ornamental things that you hear from the various different industry owners, that is simply ornamental out there. Basically, the industries are there for only one purpose, to generate the profit. Now, where will they be able to generate the profit? Location has got a very important role to play. Now, for a long period of time, people have tried to find out, and geographers rather, have tried to find out the ideal location for industries. What should be the ideal location for industries? If the industries are located in the mineral heavy region, mineral rich region, where connectivity is not there, then the transportation cost is very high. If they are located closer to the market, then their supply of raw materials get hampered. So what is the ideal location? So for this, initially, in the 1800s, you had Weber, who provided the industrial or the locational theory of industries. Now, at that point of time, in the 1800s, Weber basically said that, look, any industry is dependent, and the location of the industry is dependent on the confluence of three factors. That is raw materials, market, and transportation cost. He said that it is the confluence of all these conditions where they meet. That is where ideally the industry should be located. Obviously, for more than a century now, the world has changed. Now, transportation is no longer a headache as it used to be in the 1800s. Now, you can transport the entire train or a goods train full of coal from the region of Jharkhand to the region of Punjab, maybe in a couple of days, right? Or even in one day if push comes to shove. So, there, what do you have? You have a better flexibility. So that is why nowadays most of the industries, they are located based upon the availability of demand. Let us start to, or let us open an industry closer to the market, so that if you have a market demand shaped in a certain way, we can modify our product and fulfill that demand immediately. When the market is there, or whenever there is a demand created, I should be there to fulfill the demand. I should not be there somewhere in the rural hinterlands or in the regions of the mineral rich areas, and someone else fulfills that demand. So that is why majority of the industries now are seeking their location closer to the market, because transportation is not major a hiccup now. But when we talk about the general classification based upon raw materials, so based upon the availability of raw materials, you have the classification of industries into two types. You have the weight losing industry and the weight gaining industry. Weight losing industry and weight gaining industry. Now, what is this weight losing and weight gaining industry? When we say weight losing, in this case, the final product is lighter than the raw material. Final product is lighter than the raw material. Can we have an example of this? Good. Paper, iron, sugar. Very good. Final product is lighter. Now here, think about the transportation cost. Here you have, let's suppose, the presence of the raw material. Raw material, let's suppose, is present here, right? Here you have the market, let's suppose, where you have to take your product. Now, where is it that the transportation cost will be less? If your industry is situated at a place, let's suppose here at A, or if the industry is situated at a place here B, in which of these cases do you think overall the transportation of raw materials and then the transportation of finished product, where is it that it will be cheaper? What do you think? Okay. So for every person who has said A, I have another couple of people who have said B. Okay. Many people have said that it will be equal. Okay. So let me simplify this example further. And many of you have said same. Let me simplify it further. If you have to transport the entire of your household everything that is present in your house. If you have to transport it from, let's say, Delhi to Mumbai, and compare that to transporting a piece of paper, which of them do you think will be cheaper? Transporting a piece of paper or transporting your entire household? Obviously, piece of paper, the transporting of that will be cheaper. Why? Because you are transporting a lighter material, isn't it? Now, if you are, let's suppose if your industry is situated at A, that means for weight losing industry, the heavy materials have to be transported for a short distance. But after that, the light materials need to be transported. So this will be cheaper. But if your material is placed at B, or if your industry is situated at B, so the heavy material will be transported for a larger distance. That will be costly. And then you will have the light material which will be transported for a short distance. So which will be costlier when your industry is situated at B? So ideally, in this case, the industry should be situated at A. Is that understood? Is that understood now? No. Okay. Okay. Transportation of heavier items for longer distance is costly. Raw material and market. This is an absolute common sense, guys. So, if industry is placed at A, heavy materials are transported for a small distance, right? So the costly transportation is for a small distance. Light materials are finished products which are light. Finished products which are lighter is transported for major distance. Okay. If the industry is situated at B, so the heavier materials need to be transported for this long distance. In this case, the heavier materials need to be transported only for a small distance. So which transportation cost will be higher? The transportation cost will be higher when the heavier materials need to be transported for a long distance. That transportation cost will always be higher. So when the heavier materials need to be transported for a longer distance, obviously for the organization, for the company, the factor of transportation cost will be much higher. That is why it is always cheaper for the industry to be located closer to the raw materials so that the overall transportation cost is lower. Is that understood now? Anyone who has not understood this? Okay. All those who had said no, they are still not saying yes. So I think those who had understood earlier, they are the ones who have understood now. And so Pooja, Chavan, then Roshan, Ashay. Is that understood now? Okay. So in this case, you will find industries are situated closer to the source of raw materials. Raw materials. However, you have to add the caveat or the conditionality that due to the increasing efficiency of the transportation network, where the transportation system is becoming not only much more efficient but also much faster. So that is why majority of these industries as well, iron industry for example, iron industry earlier used to be located where you had the presence of coal, iron, limestone, these minerals, because these are bulky raw materials. Now what you have you observe is that as the transportation network keeps on getting much more efficient, they get basically situated closer to the market so as to fulfill the demand laid by the market. Then you have the weight gaining industry. Here, finished product is heavier than the raw material. Okay, so example, shipbuilding, locomotive, etc. So in this case, where would you prefer it? That the heavier materials need to be transported for the shortest distance? So always in this case, you will find that the final or the location is much closer to the requirement of the market. So here, the finished product or the location is closer to the market. Okay. Now, there are other set of factors also which end up influencing and determining the location and the position of various different industries. So you have the availability of raw material. There should be unhindered supply of raw material. That is a prime purpose and a prime requirement. And we have seen that how based upon the availability of raw material, you have the weight gaining and weight losing industry out there. Then you have the fuel and power. So reliable supply of fuel and power, that is very much required to keep the industry up and running. Okay, that reliable supply of fuel and power needs to be there. Because think about it, even if let's suppose there's a power disruption for let's suppose even half an hour. Now in that case, the industry will be forced to shut down, and then restarting the entire production process again, that will take us some amount of time. So that will bring about a loss of millions of dollars of worth. Now semiconductor industry, the entire country is now focusing on development of the semiconductor industry. One of the reasons why semiconductor industry did not pick up in the late 80s, or in fact in the 90s and the early part of 2000s, was because the power supply was not very reliable. Power supply for semiconductor needs to be pitch perfect. The same frequency needs to be maintained, right? So that was not very reliable. So that is why semiconductor industry did not pick up. Any industry, if you ask the industrialist, where would you want to set up your industry, be it in a state like Tamil Nadu, where you will have unhindered supply of electricity, continuous supply of electricity, or be it in a state where electricity is very fluctuating, they will always choose Tamil Nadu as a location. They will always choose Karnataka as a location, because if the electricity is continuous, they will choose that location. Okay. Then you have the availability of human resource. Yes, pure water is also one of those factors which is very much required. Availability of a lot of pure water is required for semiconductor industry as well. So here you have the portion of human resources. Human resources here include both skilled manpower and the unskilled labor force. So here, both skilled as well as unskilled. Skilled means trained technicians, right? For example, you have the people coming out from the polytechnic institutes, the ITIs, so the engineering graduates out there, all the IT workers, etc. So they are the skilled manpower. Now, if you observe that Tesla, when it is scouting for the location where it can open up its plant, it is scouting for regions in the area of Karnataka, in certain areas of Maharashtra. Why do you think that is the case? Is it because they like the food so much? Is it because they like the movies in Karnataka so much? No, it is purely because here you have a large and ample availability of trained technicians, trained people, right? Every year, a lot of trained people, they are churned out from the various different educational institutions. Why is it that region or companies such as Google, Microsoft, they set up their base around the region of Hyderabad? Why is it so? Is it because they like the setup there? There they concentrate their location because you have a lot of IT workers in that region, isn't it? So that is one of the primary factors for the location of industry. Then unskilled manpower is also important. So for purposes like the heavy or the large scale industries, you require a lot of, in general, the manpower, which might not be very skilled. It is this labor force which is being replaced by AI and robotics and the mechanization. Power is still irreplaceable. It is the unskilled labor force whose job is at risk with the increased automation, with the increased machine learning, with the increased AI. So, when you talk about the impact of AI and those aspects of science and tech, when you bring to the question, it is that unskilled manpower which is at risk. Then, transportation. So, transportation is an important factor. Transportation needs to be affordable, efficient, and basically fast. Pula, well, he was one of the major factors for the industrialization and development of Hyderabad. There is no denying of that fact. But other than that, Hyderabad traditionally, along with the region of Bangalore, they have always produced significant amount of IT skilled IT professionals, right? If any other chief minister from any other state, let's suppose, where you don't have these institutes, they try incessant amount of lobbying, Microsoft or Google will not come to open their base there. So that is also another factor. Garvit, I think it's other way around, that you are saying that skilled manpower will be replaced and not the unskilled labor. So please understand, with increased automation, with increased factor of the machine learning, etc., all the production processes largely in the manufacturing sector. I'm not talking about the services sector. In the manufacturing sector, large amount of these. So anyways, in the services sector, you have almost negligible role played by the unskilled labor force. In services sector, all that debate discussion that you are having for chat gpt and how chat gpt is replacing the content creators and the program coders, that is in the services sector, right? And in services sector, have you seen the role of unskilled manpower there? No, never. When it comes to manufacturing sector and the primary sector, that is where their role is very high. And that is where you will find that it is the automation process which has removed the utility of their role furthermore. Is that understood? Right? Now, transportation needs to be affordable, efficient, fast. being able to transport a lot of goods. So that is why majority of the industrial hubs across the world, they are situated either across the coastline, as in the case with China. All the industrial hubs are situated across eastern part of China. Why? So that you have easy accessibility of the trade with the help of the sea, right? Then in the region of United States, you have them being situated across major transport arteries as well. Same is the case with Europe. In India also, industrial centers, you will find they are situated at these regions of those transportation arteries, transportation networks, where you have the connectivity with the help of the highways, connectivity with the help of the railway lines, etc., or across the port areas. So, for example, one of the reasons for location of all the automobile majors around the region of Tamil Nadu is the availability of the port cities. Okay. Then market, wherever there is demand, industries will try to open up their location there. Apple opened up its location in China, manufacturing center in China. Why? Because it is one of the biggest markets out there in the world. Tesla has opened a large factory in the region of China. Why? Because it is one of the large markets in the world. Take the case of India and the fighter jets that India is trying to acquire from the rest of the portions of the world. Now, for a long period of time, all the companies of fighter jet manufacturers, that is Lockheed Martin, etc., Northrop Grumman, they were not even interested to give India the technology or not even interested to sell India the planes. But now, when India is talking about placing an order worth 10 to 12 million billion dollars, all these companies are convincing India that give us the contract, we will open up an industry in your country itself. So wherever there is demand, industry will automatically come there. Okay, so demand is one of the biggest pulls for the industry. Then after that, the capital here, availability of working funds. Of working funds. So for any industry which is operated, the person who runs that industry, it is not as if that person will open up their locker, bring out wads of money out of that, and will start distributing for the running of the industry. No. The industries always operate based upon the availability of the working capital. If the working capital is available at an easier rate of interest, easily available, industries will automatically get located and get placed there. Okay. Then you have government policies. Government policies include taxation, taxation structure, infrastructure, law and order, ease of doing business in general, ease of doing business. This is a major factor. WC, what do you mean by WC? So these are the major factors which influence the decision making, that where the industries will be located, where the industries will actually be located in general. Okay. So for example, when we talk about taxation structure, you will find many of the pharmaceutical companies situated in certain states such as Goa, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand. Is that because they find natural herbs there? No, because the taxation structure is incentivized. Many of the states, they provide the incentive that come and open up an industry in our state. We will not charge you tax in that particular state for this much duration. So that is the availability of taxation structure. Then the infrastructure. Infrastructure is of prime importance. If there is no infrastructure, regardless of how much appeals that the chief minister of that state does or the prime minister of the country does, there is no industry which is going to move. Take a case of, for example, the state of Bihar. Now, state of Bihar has been lacking infrastructure for decades now. Regardless of whatever is being said and what is being done, still you will find that the infrastructural or the state of infrastructure is still very bad. It is still not very good up to the mark what is required. Take the case of Jharkhand. Jharkhand is one of those areas which is minerally very, very rich, right? One of the richest areas in terms of mineral deposits. But infrastructure is woefully bad. It is as bad as it can get. Connectivity is woefully bad. So industries, they don't try to locate there, right? So infrastructure is important, law and order, and then ease of doing business. How long does it take for you to clear the files, to get the approval process done? And I might have given this example earlier, that you had the chairman or the owner of the Marriott groups of hotels. Now, after he was establishing a series of hotels in the region of Vietnam, when he came to India to open up and inaugurate a hotel, people asked him this question, that why don't you open more hotels in India rather opening up hotels in Vietnam? He gave a simple statement, that the time that it takes for me to get clearance from the government in India, in that time, I not only am able to construct the hotel in Vietnam, I'm able to start the business as well. So in India, in many of the regions, in many of the cases, it takes years to get the clearance. Then you have the political stability, the political setup, all of them are also responsible. And there I would direct you to some of the very interesting articles which have been indicated about the phase where the region of West Bengal, for some period of time immediately after independence, that used to be a major industrial hub of the country. But then all the industries migrated from West Bengal. They moved to Maharashtra. They moved to Karnataka, Tamil Nadu. Why? That is because in the region of West Bengal, for a long period of time, you had a phase where you only had series of agitations, strikes, and calls of for bunds. Right? Every other day, you had some or the other union imposing a strike that we will not go to work. This is, we want this particular thing to be fulfilled, so shut down or closure of the industry. The industries cannot tolerate so much amount of losses. So all of them, they shifted their base to Mumbai. So that is one of the very interesting research papers about the deindustrialization of Bengal. There's a factor of, or there's also a research paper for deindustrialization of Punjab as well, but that is for some later time. Now, these government policies, just let me give you an idea about it. One of the largest semiconductor manufacturers of the world, that was earlier, now it is acquired by a different company. So a couple of decades back, you had the largest semiconductor manufacturer of the world, that was Freescale. It wanted to set up the one of the largest semiconductor manufacturing facilities in India, because it saw the potential of the growing market in India. It wanted to open up its facility in Kerala, so that even the semiconductors manufactured there could be exported as well. But it made two demands from the government. The demands were, ensure that the land acquisition process is smooth, that once we have acquired land, there are no further litigations which are carried on, and we are not dragged to the court for the land acquisition. So ensure land acquisition for us. And secondly, kindly ensure that for 1 year period, we don't face band and strike calls. Right? The government said we cannot ensure these two. Right? This is too heavy a demand that you have made. So Freescale very openly went to China, opened up one of the largest semiconductor manufacturing centers of the world in China, and look at where the ecosystem for semiconductor manufacturing in China has gone to, and how India is still trying to catch up. And we are still decades away from catching up to the potential of and the prowess which China is indicating. So we are still very far away from that. So that tells you that how a combination of factors in many of the cases influences the location of industries. Now, working capital, you had asked. Working capital is basically the availability of funds which are required for the funds which are required for the day-to-day operations of the industries. For example, payment of wages, for example, installation of new machineries, for maintenance of new machineries, transportation cost, logistics cost, warehousing cost, all of that comes under working capital. Okay, right. By the way, I hope we are okay to extend the session for around 30 to 40 minutes. That is when we will be covering the portion of human geography. Okay, are we okay with that? Perfect. So we will be extending the session for 30 to 45 minutes, and we will be covering about population settlement. Not a heavy discussion. We will have a light discussion based upon your observations around you. Okay, and so won't it be possible that the jobs of even skilled manpower would be lost because of AI? Absolutely possible. It is happening. Absolutely, it is happening. But it is the unskilled labor which is almost, their role is almost pushed into extinction now. Eventually, AI will has got the potential to hamper even the skilled manpower force. Okay. Now, long-term capital use for what? Long-term capital use is basically about the portion of the acquisition of, let's suppose, uh, a larger equipment, setting up of a newer manufacturing facility. That is the long term. Working capital is different. Okay, the Hindu analysis, it will be available on YouTube, my dear friends. You can watch it at a later point of time as well. Don't worry about it. Banking facilities are required, not so much. For location of industries, not so much, because when an industry opens up in a region, automatically it will attract a lot of manpower. Automatically the banking facilities and the services sector will come up. So that is the general progression in an economy. All the economic setups, I know I'm digressing into another subject, but all the economic major economies that you see, you will observe initially they have increased the primary sector. After the primary sector, the manufacturing sector grew, and that is where the entirety of the bulk of the labor force from primary sector migrated to manufacturing sector. That is when the manufacturing process grew, and that provided a sustainable growth for services sector as well. In our country, sadly, it is slightly morphed in the sense that you had a large scale use of the primary sector agriculture. Manufacturing sector never picked up because of the various lacunae in the industrial policy. You have the various industrial policies that you would have come across. Then after that, you would have, rather than the manufacturing sector growing, we had a sudden outburst of the services sector. So that is why you don't have the labor force migrating from agricultural or primary sector directly into services sector, because it is a skilled workforce required. So rather than the labor force shifting from primary to manufacturing, we have an overstress in the primary sector itself. And that is why the services sector is completely driven by the IT sector. If the IT sector fails, then the services sector collapses many of the cases. Okay. Now, here, when we talk about the industrial regions, now in our country, you have certain industrial regions out there, certain particular industrial regions. Now, these industrial regions, they are the hubs of the industrial processes. In all these places, be it the Mumbai Pune zone, be it the Delhi Meerut Gurgaon zone, be it the region of the Hooghly Kolkata area, be it the region of Chota Nagpur Plateau, be it the Bangalore Chennai zone, in all of these, you will observe certain basic characteristics. What are the basic characteristics? They are that they have all started their development based upon the framework set by the primary sector. The primary industries, they grew in these areas. Once the primary industries, they started growing, abundance of labor force and the industrial ecosystem then carried the momentum further. So we will take a look at few of them to understand the broader pattern. So here, when we take a look at it, first of all, Mumbai Pune industrial region. Now, in the case of the Mumbai Pune industrial region, the industrialization of this region is owed to the origin or the time of British rule in India itself. Now, the region of Mumbai, it started developing as an industrial hub due to cotton textile. Cotton, which was largely produced in the black soil regions in the vicinity, that cotton textile would be processed in this area. And that is why it started growing in prominence. Now, if you have cotton textile, you would also require chemicals to treat that textile. You would also require chemicals to color that textile. So that is where the chemical industry also started coming up. With the Bombay High giving up crude, you had petrochemical industry also started to come up. So that is how the entire industrial setup. Now, initially it was concentrated only in Mumbai, but the establishment of transportation corridor between Mumbai to Pune and Mumbai to Nashik has virtually expanded this particular industrial region into the Mumbai-Pune industrial belt. Okay, so cotton was cultivated in the black soil area of the Narmada and Tapi. Then partition of the country in 1947 adversely affected the region because 81% of the total irrigated cotton area growing long staple cotton went to Pakistan. In addition to cotton textile, chemical industries, engineering goods, all the various industrial sector have come up. It all started with cotton textile. Take a look at the Hooghly region. Hooghly region, it started getting industrialized because of the jute. Jute, this is the region for production of jute. So jute textile mills, they started coming up in the area of Rishra around 1855. And also the tea which was produced in the northern portion of Bengal and the portion of Assam, that tea would be brought here for processing purposes. Then furthermore, coal and iron ore being found in the nearby region of Chota Nagpur Plateau, that added the availability of raw materials. Then the river Hooghly and its contact with the port, that provided other transportation facilities for the rest of the world. Slowly and steadily, the industrialization happened. Cheap labor force was always available from Bengal, from Assam, from Bihar, from Jharkhand, from Odisha. People would migrate to Kolkata to seek a better life for themselves. So cheap labor force was always available, right? And that brought about industrialization. Haldia port, which was developed later on, further added to the heft of that industrial center. And now you have the refineries, petrochemical facilities also at Haldia, which has further diversified the industrial base. So, yes, petroleum refinery has also been opened up. So, beside navigable rivers, roads, and the railways provided links for the benefit of the Kolkata port. Discovery of coal and iron ore in Chota Nagpur Plateau provided raw materials. Tea plantations in Assam and northern parts of West Bengal also aided to the industrialization. Processing of deltaic Bengal's jute is where the process started. Cheap labor could be found. Location of petroleum refinery at Haldia and construction of Haldia port along with the mega thermal power plant. Yes. So that mega thermal power plant of 660 megawatt, which has been opened up, that has further augmented the industrialization of the region. Okay. Now, then you have the Chota Nagpur. Chota Nagpur is a minerally very rich area. Now, Chota Nagpur minerally rich area is one of the reasons why industries would be located there, raw material availability. It lies on the transportation corridor between Delhi and Kolkata, right? So that is where it provides a very easy transportation and evacuation of goods. Along with that, here you also have a significant cheap labor supply in this region from the area, from the state itself, from the surrounding areas of Bengal, Bihar, Odisha, and Chhattisgarh also. So cheap labor supply is also there. So raw power is always available because of hydroelectric power facility in the Damodar Valley Corporation and also the thermal power plant. So all these factors have created many different industrial zones, such as you have Daltonganj, you have Hazaribagh, Jamshedpur, right? What was also referred to as Tatanagar. So all these are industrial centers. Yes, all the major iron and steel industries would be situated here. Then you have the Delhi Meerut Gurgaon Industrial Zone. Now, the Delhi Meerut Gurgaon Industrial Zone, why Chota Nagpur is called the Ruhr of India? Because where is it that the Ruhr Valley is situated, Sajan? Ruhr Valley is situated in Jamshedpur is in Gujarat. No, Jamshedpur is in Jharkhand. Okay. Ruhr Valley is situated where? In Germany. It is situated, it is a minerally very abundantly rich area, right? So that is where you have the similarity with the case of the region of Chota Nagpur Plateau as well. In the Ruhr Valley also, you have a Rift Valley system and you have the coal deposits also in that region, iron deposits also in that region. So a lot of similarity. That is why. Okay. Now, then the Delhi Gurgaon Meerut Industrial Zone. This also started developing on the two axes of Delhi, on two ends of Delhi, based upon the utility of, first of all, the raw materials and the primary sector. So when you go from the region of Delhi westwards, that is into the region of Panipat, Sonipat, further ahead up till the region of Ambala. So that had earlier been an agro-rich area, but also you had the production of lot of textiles, right? Then you had a field oil refinery, which was basically set up at Panipat. That brought about industrialization. Indian Oil Refinery at Panipat, that brought about auxiliary setup of industries in that region. Meanwhile, as you move into the region of from Ghaziabad to Sahibabad region, then the region of Modinagar, Meerut, Saharanpur, that had been a sugar belt. And there you had a lot of sugar mills coming up. So that brought about an industrial ecosystem. Closeness and proximity to the national capital brought the availability of market, easy transportation facility, because infrastructurally, Delhi NCR is one of the best connected areas across the country in terms of infrastructure. You have the best quality highways, flyovers, expressways, and also rail and air links are provided to the maximum extent. Right. So that is how the industrialization started. The industrialization also started or was augmented with setting up of the Maruti Udyog in the region of Manesar in Gurgaon. That set up many of the small industries in the vicinity. And slowly, steadily, that industrialization process continued. It diversified into the services sector. Now you will find in the region of Gurgaon, in the region of Noida, software parks and the service sector industry that has started dominating. Okay, so one belt extends from Agra, Mathura, Meerut. So even in the region of Mathura, you have an oil refinery. Even in the region of Panipat, you have an oil refinery. Okay, so the industries are light and market oriented, and you have the various different. So software industry is the recent addition. Now, one other factor that you have to understand when you talk about the requirement of the process of development of India, these are certain of these concentrated areas of development of industrialization. Rest of the country doesn't experience that much amount of industrialization because all these factors are not readily available to them. So, what was deemed as a solution was basically the connectivity of these areas. What if we connect these industrial regions with the world-class infrastructure facility? What if we connect these regions in such a way that not only is the infrastructure available, but also transportation of goods can be available? We set certain townships as well, a logistics park, so that whatever you produce can be stored there, right? That will bring about industrialization in the nearby areas as well. If we connect these industrial regions, that can bring about industrialization here as well, here as well. So hence was born the idea of an industrial corridor. So when you talk about an industrial corridor, so these are the ones which end up joining the important industrial locations, providing the infrastructural facilities in between as well. That is the infrastructural or industrial corridor. So excuse me, they offer effective integration between industry and infrastructure, leading to overall economic and social development. They constitute world-class infrastructure such as high-speed transportation network, ports with state-of-the-art cargo handling equipment, modern airports, logistics parks, special economic zones, complementary infrastructure. So overall, it is to attain an infrastructural growth, industrial growth in the regions in between as well, so that the industrial centers, they are not cluttered in certain of the metropolitan regions. The industrial growth is democratized for the rest of the country as well, so that let's suppose a kind of an individual trader sitting, or any small scale manufacturer sitting at Belgaum, for example, that person should have the ability to sell his goods or in the international market by sending his goods through the best quality of the road network, rail network to Mumbai port, and from Mumbai port it can be taken up. So that is the importance and the necessity of providing these industrial corridors. These industrial corridors, they are also something that you will always find the mention in current affairs news. When you go for newspaper reading, these industrial corridors are oftentimes put up in news. So please pay attention to that. Which is the implementing agency, which is the implementing body, that is directly asked in the examination. This year also you had this question asked in the exam. Okay, now here is the list of the various different minerals and the states where they are located, non-metallic minerals, and here you have the metallic minerals where they are generally located. Now we come over to the portion of population, settlement, and transport. Before that, if you need a 5 minutes break, please let me know. I will give you a 5 minutes break before that. Okay. Okay, do one thing. Take a see, many of you are saying not needed. Okay. No, 10 minutes break is out of scope as of now. Okay, so do one thing, take a 5 minutes break, guys, but sharp 5 minutes. Okay, and we will be back in around 10:10, and then we will continue. We will finish this particular module of discussion, and then we will end the session here. Mapping, we will do it next Saturday. We will find an adequate time, maybe around 7. We will start. We will have it for 2 hours, and that is it. Okay, so let's take a 5 minutes break, and then we come back and we continue.